Sam. Hello boys. How would you feel about both coming on my podcast for a 38th episode special, as long as needed? Pull up a chair with a drink and some snacks and we can record one of the best parkour conversations ever. Would be a wicked opportunity to cover a lot of topics and challenge each other.
Flynn, I'm keen. Callum says he's in too.
Callum. Just seeing this. Yes, I'm down. Unless of course you'd prefer a yoga teacher instead.
Sam. Wicked. Flynn mentioned he could swing by yours so that the discussion is more fluid.
Callum. Yeah, might be better. Unless you'd prefer Flynn's
boat
for a more nautical feel.
Sam. I guess on a practical note, whichever has the best Wi-Fi, so we're not getting too much half-eye closed freezing.
Flynn, the lighting and Wi-Fi is subprime. I think yours or Olive's.
Callum. Yeah. Either or TBF.
This is what we're going to do for the whole thing.
Okay. I think we're recording. I think we finally got there. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Parkour Coach Companion episode 30. This is the big special. This is the number 30 special. And because of that, I've got two guests with me today. Two of my biggest inspirations in parkour and generally. I've managed to get them together. Hopefully they're all in one piece at the moment. We'll see about that. And we're going to fire loads of questions at them. I've got questions from the community as well, which we'll get onto towards the end. So if you asked a question, then hold on tight for that. But I'm excited. Thank you so much for coming, guys. I'm really, really grateful that you made it here. How are we today?
We're okay. We're slightly less organized than we would like to be.
Yeah,
but
I
we're
big time. my fault mostly.
No,
I mean, yeah.
I think I can take some responsibility there as well. But we're doing good. I speak for we. I'm doing good. I think Callum's okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, for the most part.
Reasonable.
Yeah, for the most
reasonable. So I was just speaking to the two of them before we started, and basically the way this is going to be structured is the first hour-ish is going to be directed at Callum. I've got a number of questions for him. Then we're going to look at Flynn and Flynn's brain. And the last hour will be to do with the audience questions. So Callum, my first question, we'll go in heavy. We'll go in heavy to start with. No messing about here. So what do you know about rolling down in the deep?
In the deep end. Oh, right. Damn. Oh, God, way to start with a deep one. Yeah.
When your brain goes numb, you could call it mental freeze.
You could call it mental freeze. You could. Oh man, I honestly very very sick of hearing this song and that kind of genre of song. Like, yeah, TikTok.
I like the way you describe the funneling of culture. We had a conversation about this, and you described this algorithm incentivized way of organizing everything, where we just end up with one set of songs that we use and one set of movements and one set of
like in many ways, like it. I mean, I feel like humanity has always done like certain things to, I don't know, like gain things, and now we have very clear metrics for how we're gaining things. Namely, views and followers and like engagement on your social media posts and stuff, and like we get data for like whether we do stuff that people like or don't like, and that's in views and followers and stuff, and so people can see that, oh, these movements don't do so well, people don't like them as much, I shouldn't do these things. I shouldn't record myself doing these things, at least, and I should do these things that get me more views, and that might be, for example, POV roof gaps where you do some weird like shape in the air that makes it look like you're gonna fall, but oh no, oh your legs are going down below the thing and touching water or something. And then of course there's this new thing which is funneling our incentives and our culture deeper and deeper into this little funnel with even our music now as well. The algorithm is controlling what we do.
I think we both do this though, don't we? Like I definitely know that the movement that I do is quite different to the movement that I show.
Right.
And I can't help but feel that's. I try to make sure that my movement itself, the way that I practice, is not incentivized by these structures.
Yeah.
But I can only admit that what I upload is shaped by these structures. Yeah,
none of us. That's the annoying thing. None of us are immune, but it's definitely a spectrum of like how well you play to this, and how like aware you are of its influence on how you act and how you upload and everything as well. It's it's really creepy. Like
it's creepy, yeah, for sure.
Like while it's like we're all puppets and we're dancing, like
dancing to these algorithms.
Yeah,
biological and non-biological.
Yeah, for sure. In this entanglement.
Rolling in the deep
end.
I wonder how long it'll be till Flynn breaks and uses a viral TikTok song for one of his.
Gonna happen anytime.
No, fuck that. Are you allowed to swear?
Please swear more. I love swearing. Swear more than you need to if you need to. So, it's fine by me. I like swearing. But yeah, on that note, on the social media vibe, Callum, you announced yesterday or the day before that you have actually double bluffed people and that you are in fact right.
I bloody got right.
That you are in fact writing an extensive piece on the meaning or the definition of parkour. So, is this a book? Is this something that we can expect to see on the shelves in Waterstones?
I mean, it's too long to be the original. I explained this very briefly in my Instagram story. So the original idea was on. I've started writing stuff for Stora's website, just because that's like the only place I can put stuff. I mean, it's the only place I should really put stuff that is too long to fit in captions and everything for Callum Tips. So I started writing that, and then I was tasked with writing more stuff, like to help our SEO, which is search engine optimization, to help Stora like come up higher in the when you search parkour or whatever into Google. Right now, you'll sadly see like a lot of Adam Dunlap shit and Take Flight and everything, for example.
Shouts to Adam.
But he has a bit of a monopoly on that stuff. Peddling is bullshit. So then there were two things that I was tasked to write, which would like help that. One was like a classic kind of thing, 5 ways for beginners to start parkour, and the other was just simply what is parkour. I thought I'll start with that one. Fair enough, it's pretty easy. I started taking notes for like a couple of months before actually opening up the word processor and then I just immediately came to a mental block, and I was like, I'll look at the Wikipedia definition for a bit of inspiration. This will be fun. And I knew it would be bullshit, and sure enough it was. And I just felt like I needed to like share it on my story and do one of those polls to like, and I left it super vague. I just put agree or disagree, and I highlighted the top lines of the Wikipedia definition of parkour. It was really surprising. It was 2/3 agree And the definition is, I should be able to remember it because I've been writing about it for the past 2 months.
It's old school.
Parkour is a discipline, and then it talks about like the practitioners are called chasseurs, and it is about moving through a complex environment in the fastest and most efficient way possible, with no extra assistance from equipment, something like that, something like that, and yeah, like 2/3 of people agreed, and there were like 15,000 votes, and also like I got more in like views and engagement on that story than any other that I've had before. Yeah, so I was either like, all of these people are lying, or they just take a definition as 100%. This is what it used to be. This is what this is what the founders defined it as. So therefore, that's what it stays. But these people claim to do parkour, right? Yet this isn't how, like, it nowhere near comes close to describing how parkour is practiced, like across the globe.
Which people are these people? Sorry to interrupt.
Most people that practice parkour that we see like on the internet, to get any gauge of like how it's generally practiced, like I guess in the media is the only way we can know. But like, I don't know, there might be some hermits somewhere that don't upload on the internet and they solely train A to B and call themselves chasseurs and stuff like this.
So would you say, sorry to interrupt, but on that point, what I'm feeling from you and what I've felt from a lot of other people is, do you feel that the definition's wrong because the way we generally train now is essentially challenge setting? Do you think that's a difference? Because our mindset generally seems to be that we go to a certain spot and we set challenges and we try and do them, and that's kind of the way it is. Do you think that's a...
It's more than that. It's way more open than that. It's you can't put it in a simpler box as just moving quickly from A to B. Like, that's not even, it doesn't even describe how the founders trained. It doesn't even describe their intention to train for most of the time that they were developing the sport.
Is it to some extent the case that we have to define it because we have to explain it?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it is just lazy, and it's super lazy. But yeah, either way, like I did another poll, but between the polls, I stupidly expressed that I was shocked and appalled with everyone's answer, and then I made a clearer, a poll with a less vague question, which was, do you feel like this definition describes how you train, how you practice parkour? And it swung the other way. It was 2/3 no, and a third for yes. And I still think that the 31% or whatever for yes are still lying through their teeth, or just completely don't understand that, like, the way they train is, just because you don't go upside down doesn't mean like you're training for efficiency, and that yet they're still doing this like spaghetti kind of, not A to B but A to B to C to D to, it's
yeah.
And not only the way their training looks, but the intention behind it, which you could argue is more important than your actual training. And of course the two have to align, but yeah, either way, that after that I asked people to define parkour in like but limited to the very small question box that you have on Instagram stories. And Flynn said parkour is, what did you say?
A landscape.
Parkour is a landscape that is too fertile, complex and fertile landscape.
Something with lots of nouns and adjectives.
Pretty much saying it's too complex to sum up in this little box. But I also added that I wanted people to imagine that their training had been interrupted by a member of the public, and they had no idea what parkour was, and I was like, give me that definition that you'd give them. And I didn't get through reading all of them, because honestly there was probably thousands. But yeah, some of them were pretty wacky. And some, like numerous people actually, just replied with the single word, freedom. It's freedom, man! Freedom! And I feel like freedom doesn't really define anything other than the word freedom. It was very enlightening to the fact that we're really bad at expressing our words through our words about our sport.
Of what we do.
Is it possible that we don't actually understand it?
Yes.
There's an idea that
Very
we often play more complex games than we understand.
I very much think so.
And when asked to explain the rules of a game, we can't explain the rules, although we can play the game coherently.
Something
similar is happening.
But people know that what we do is so free, open and broad, but still it's so strange that they would agree to this like narrow definition of what we do.
You raised an interesting point the other day, which was that it's the sports or the whatevers. Sorry to trigger people, the whatevers, the practices. I like
activities,
that word. I like the word practice, although the practitioner never arrives. But you said that it's these practices that are the most free, that have the highest barrier to entry.
Yeah, not the barrier to entry. I believe I said. Why is it the freest of sports that have the most gatekeepers? I think, as in like the people that are like, no, this is the way. This is the way that you're meant to practice. You're not practicing right. And I think it's the same with skateboarding. Everyone. There are so many different personalities of people that do parkour, skateboarding as well. And I think there are parts of the sport that resonate with different personalities, and there are just some people that think their way is right. I guess. But yeah, that still doesn't explain why so many people agreed with this kind of lazy bullshit definition that's well outdated.
So my answer to that, in the space of 2 sentences or whatever, it's something that I use to explain it like you asked for, like people on the street or muggles, as people say. That essentially parkour is about is about moving in different ways in different environments, as a vague term. Because there's no single movement, there's no single pattern of the movement. So a big part of parkour is the difference and the variation in what we do. But on that note, what do you say in your classes? 'Cause I know you run class, you've run classes in Brighton. So what do you tell beginners and children? What do you say about parkour? What do you think it is? How do you explain it to them?
To my students, I don't know. Honestly, I don't think I've ever been in a position where I've actually defined it to any of my students. I don't know. Have you?
I'm trying to think if I've done that so explicitly.
Because I say, I agree. I don't say, right, okay, look, kids, this is what parkour is. I don't, lay it out, but I do say things like, well, so and so is very important in parkour, or in parkour we try and do this, or in parkour we try and aim for this. So I sort of go around the definition by explaining what we do, essentially.
I feel like I've done more of that than any explicit definition.
Yeah.
I feel like I question the utility in a sense of there's an inequity of usefulness between action and words. And the example that I can give for this is Marcio. I spent a bit of time with him in Porto, and I was amazed by his students, who were super passionate, super focused. I watched a couple of classes of his, and he's got a very casual way of coaching, and I don't know that he's like wildly knowledgeable about, say, like sports science. Maybe he is, but I think it was really just through the sheer sincere passion that he was giving, like by a very significant amount. That is the more important thing than like, do we have the perfect definition, right? So I find that a lot of these games are actually not a great use of energy.
Yeah,
which is why I'm not interested.
That's the thing. We all feel it. We like Marcio's students. They feel it. They know it without being able to express it. Right? We all can. But like, it must look fucking weird from an aerial view, right? It must look very weird, like outside looking in.
Well, we live in a very explicit culture. We want to make everything very clear. I mean, I'm someone who's also wanting to make things very clear in this sense. There's a lot that is implicit. There's a lot that is like understood, but not necessarily spoken out.
Yeah. And I think these things are. Sorry.
No.
I think these things are funny. The fact that we feel them. It's not just the definition. There are so many things that we agree upon and feel that we can't communicate. We don't know why. Like, and essentially what this project is it's just a really fucking long Callum tip. It's just social commentary. It's bringing up all these bullshit things and putting them in front of everyone and just being like, this is fucking weird. Why do we do this? It's like one of the simple ones. We've spoken about this. We hate, like, this comes to the without any the definition it talks about without any use of assisting equipment, and that includes gloves, I guess. Like, we fucking hate gloves and pads and everything. Gloves are just like, shoes are just gloves for your feet, right? we put these massive, like, spongy clumps of things on our feet, and it's like, wearing, and that's this is just one thing, but yeah, gloves can help us because they're grippy and stuff. It's like you need to like be strong for that. It's like, what the fuck do you think shoes are doing? Like, we buy the grippiest shoes with the thickest soles so we don't have to use our own body strength. And then it's like,
to do things that we couldn't necessarily do otherwise.
Yeah. And like, yeah, gloves help. Like, you shouldn't use gloves because you need to toughen your own hands up and everything.
It's probably a lot about style. And
you can do that with, like, shoes are the same. Like, if you toughen your bare feet up and stuff, like, it's
there's some amazing practitioners who spent a lot of time moving barefoot and really pushed.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that can be built on.
Leo
as well.
Urban.
Oh yeah, Leo Urban is a fucking beast.
Sorry. He did the manpower gap again the other day, barefoot.
Yeah.
You don't need to do it again, man. Like, everyone thought, wow, like, he's done some incredible stunt.
He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, it's just a one-off.
I went to Andorra once, actually.
Oh really?
Yeah, I slept on the rooftops when I was maybe 20, 21, and I've seen at least how high those roofs are. They're pretty intense.
Jeez.
Why isn't he more? Well, I was going to say famous, but why don't people talk about Leo Urban? Doesn't he encapsulate like a lot of the old purist ways? You know, like what people seem to love. Why don't we focus on people like Leo Urban, who's like, have you seen him climbing the tree as well? That rapid like drone shot of him climbing the tree barefoot.
Insane, man.
Yeah.
I went on his page the other day, and he's doing a lot of like actual building climbing now, not just taking the stairs or the lift up and then just like and then like selfie sticking yourself around like with some girl with her butt out and stuff. Like he's doing I mean, I don't want to compare him to Alain Robert, but he's climbing buildings. He's actually climbing the outside of buildings. What other things of the founders do you think he kind of encapsulates in his
Um,
practice?
it's hard to explain, isn't it? We're not very good at explaining these things, but I mean, he does big drops. That is one thing, but I think it's the kind of like that kind of rugged aesthetic that it reminds me of, you know, like of David Bell, and kind of, yeah, being able to take the hits and being this, you know, strong mind, strong body, this sort of thing. There's plenty of people who now, I mean, who was I talking to? So I was talking to Howard Palmer in my last episode, and he was saying about, he's 40 now, and we had a really, really interesting conversation, and he was saying that, like, he doesn't think essentially people are that strong in parkour, like they're not actually embodying what a lot of the original thoughts were. And he said that he's an exception because he's been training since like 2003 or something, and he's 40 now, and he's only been able to manage that longevity by kind of adopting this sense of strength and needing to be strong. You know, are people that do, because, you know, this word lines we use a lot nowadays about how we move and creating lines, getting the best line, perfecting a line. Like, are these people strong? Like, is it just a completely different thing that we're doing now?
It depends what you're talking about, because there's strong body, like, which he might be referring to with the longevity kind of thing, which also can be to many other factors other than their training.
For sure.
But like strong mind, like, I don't know, it's a lot harder to measure outside of your actions, and not just actions in like what's put on Instagram, like it's actions across the board. But yeah, the whole longevity thing, I don't know, like the way the founders trained, it doesn't really make sense from a longevity perspective. I'm not underestimating it's a mistake to underestimate the ability of the human body to adapt to stress. But the way the founders trained, it just sounds like a recipe for overtraining, if you ask me. Like they're
Yeah, for sure.
This kind of Hell Knight style.
Yeah, and it's far from productive for getting stronger. It just seems like a recipe for injury. Like you're just stacking stress upon stress, and through these like really arduous and arbitrary endurance challenges, like extreme endurance challenges, like and PK Gen, I'm not sure if they still do, but they used to do this style stuff like for their warm up, and I'm sure they lost a lot of students for doing it. But like this, like really hard stuff before actually doing jumps, and then making the jumps really bad, so you can't actually learn the jumps properly, the jumps potentially damage you because you're so knackered. Like it just doesn't seem like, I don't know.
Couple of things.
But yeah, there's a lot to say about it, and I kind of went.
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure what I'm agreeing with myself with, and just kind of just poking at you as well.
But that's the thing. So there are two goals for the way that the founders practice, and the way, like what encapsulates like ADD style training. It's the strong body and strong mind, and I think trying to achieve both. Like if your goal is to get strong for like something goal specific, it's going to be hard to achieve that goal while trying to like achieve mental fortitude through exercise as well. I feel like they're two very conflicting things. I feel like if it's like trying to hit two birds with one stone and just hitting neither.
I see a lot of their stuff is orientated towards internal processes, and interpersonal processes.
Yeah.
So a lot of their work is geared towards community.
Yeah.
And
This is very important in itself,
Yeah.
but trying to disguise it as both, I think, is the
yeah, I think that's a really good point. A really good point.
that's the confusion.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, I think that confusion has been laid within our community for a very long time. And that's maybe why there's like, I don't know, there's, sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, yeah. I think the strength conversation is also a really interesting one. I'm also up for having. But I think it's a really useful point that you've made, that people are seeing the way that those guys were doing stuff and saying like, okay, that's how we get into this like strong state efficiently. If the goal is to do parkour, if parkour is sort of related to efficiency, then there's a sort of irony in taking this incredibly inefficient route to strength.
Exactly.
But I think that's not their. I think that's an orientation for them, longevity, and they're sort of doing, what would you call it, sort of like muscular endurance work.
Yeah.
But their, where was it coming from? I think their orientation is, yes, so much about this going through difficult things with people. There are a few times in my life where I've built such strong relationships with people so quickly, is when I've gone through something a bit arduous with them, whether that's climbing a mountain or whether that's like breaking through a challenge within parkour. These are experiences that leave very strong connections, or create very strong connections, and leave very strong memories as well. And it's like, well, yeah, like that's actually pretty wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. I'm not saying there's absolutely no point to it. Far from it. I just think like it creates confusion when people are looking for answers of our like fragmented and scattered history on parkour.net in 2003 and find this is the way that our founders were training to get strong, and then from that point an idea and in our culture is set, and it snowballs, and then we have like a very kind of inefficient meme in our culture. But that's the thing, like it has like amazing use like for developing the self, and I think everything that we do in parkour should be with that in mind. And yeah, creating those bonds, I've definitely felt that as well. Like I attended Rendezvous in 2017, and yeah, there was a lot of people that I'd never met before. There's definitely some strong bonds made, as well as just like you face like parts of yourself that are brought to the surface, and you can analyze them and think like, what is this? Like I don't like this part of me that wants to give up, or just things like that. But honestly, I really think that parkour offers us that. Parkour, it's inherent in parkour. Without doing these things, the movement gives us that, but it really just does help to have that mindset, to know that you should be looking for those things, those gems that you can find in the practice of trying to break a jump, for example. It's like, there are too many ways that parkour can help us in that way. That's why we say it can be applied to everything, because it just helps you notice things about yourself.
Or it has the potential to.
It has the potential to,
with the right ideas.
But you need to know to look for those things.
Do you see there being much of this presence at the moment in the community regarding particularly self-awareness?
I don't think people are looking for it. I think people are looking to
rolling in the deep.
Rolling in the deep end. That's honestly, yeah. I think we're controlled by the Instagram algorithm more than anything else. But I don't know.
More than anything else.
I wish people knew what to look for in parkour, because it's fucking ripe for.
It's very ripe. It's a ripe landscape.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing.
Landscape of opportunity.
It's not just amazing because it looks cool, guys. I promise. Like, there's more.
There's more.
I mean, you could say like it's not just parkour. You can get it from anything we do. Like you can learn more about yourself by sitting in traffic and noticing yourself getting angry, and then just being like, the fuck am I getting angry about? I can control this. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can notice things about yourself and learn from everything. But I think the great thing about parkour is it's so close to. Brandon Douglas says it's piloting yourself, piloting your own vessel, which I really liked. I don't know if he said vessel. That's my own little addition. But yeah, like it's maybe we can pull more from it because it's so like inherent in our nature. Maybe I don't know.
Let me ask you another question then on that line of thinking. If coaching and if we want to get more and more people into parkour, which I assume that we'd agree on, that we want more people to do parkour, do you think that there needs to be some stronger definitions and stronger terminologies and a kind of overhaul of the language of parkour so that we can actually coach effectively for generations and generations? Do you think there needs to be something more consensus wise understood to be as parkour?
I don't know. I feel like some things would definitely help, but I feel like the activity speaks for itself in some sense. But you have such an important role as a coach to inspire your students to try and get the best out of parkour, and you can only do that, I think, by giving them the right challenges and to know what to look for in the challenges
and living it.
Yeah, and yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you see where I'm coming from? As in, like, you
it speaks for itself, but I think the personalities that are sharing it is important. Like,
Danny, go on.
Yeah. No, yeah, Danny.
Well, Danny said something very interesting in the conversation that we had, which I'll release soon. He said that if he saw parkour now, wait, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. He said that if he saw parkour now, as is in its current form.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Sam.
Cheers.
He said that he wouldn't be interested. He said that if he was a young lad in the position that he was in, which if the listeners don't know, it's quite open knowledge that he came from a very rough background, and as a bright kid, as most bright kids are, was probably quite trouble-prone. And he said that if he had come upon what parkour is now, he wouldn't have been interested.
Why? What about it?
I think he was very attracted to the... Possibly, it depends how you frame it, whether it's mystery or ambiguity. Mystery is something that has one answer, but it's not clear what it is. And ambiguity is something that can be interpreted in multiple ways. So it's not clear which one of those it was. If it was a sort of, I can write this as I want, which would be sort of ambiguity, or is it mystery, like there's something here that I want to pursue. Referencing who Danny is, it sounds a bit like this one. And now it's like, I don't know, looking at it, it's like it feels a bit like the stories have been told, and I feel that is so far from the truth.
Really?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stories to be told. I mean, it's interesting that why has London been the place where so many extremely high level practitioners have come from? And why? For example, like I find this very interesting that, for example, Jaden Clark and Alfie Green, some of the highest level, skill-wise, highest level practitioners, but I don't think they've ever sort of like done any, again, like sort of strength training, weightlifting, or any of this sort of like methodical. It's more sort of, I really, really deeply need to be able to do this.
Yeah, And they're world-class athletes.
And they're
like,
world-class
no
athletes.
one can deny that they're world-class athletes.
Incredibly skilled in two very, very different ways.
Greg Ennis is a world-class athlete.
It's true.
Like, you can't deny it. Look at the shit he's done. Like, they all are.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
There's some mysteries. I think there's a lot of openness.
I feel like early on, a lot of us were. I think I get what Danny's saying and maybe what you're saying as well. Early on, seeing parkour in its like early days and in its like most ambiguous form, it spoke more ideas than just its than just what's physical. If you know what I mean. Parkour now, when you see it, it's just so about what is physical.
Yeah.
Whereas when a lot of us started, there was something drawing us to this thing. Like it was like a really fertile time, I believe, when like our generation kind of needed it, if you know what I mean. And that's to do with like the media and different sports that were around and that were cool at the time, namely Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and everything like that, with skateboarding, all those other game releases. I honestly think The Matrix had a big part of it as well. I'm not even kidding. As well as like the Spider-Man films.
In a sense.
Yeah, I mean, how many old school parkour videos in like the early to mid 2000s and then a bit beyond, like had like Neo and Morpheus quotes, like and the soundtrack for the videos as well. Yeah, really.
I'm afraid to be in that crowd. I'm afraid to say I'm in that crowd.
It was everywhere.
Sam, what was the quote? Or was it the soundtrack?
No, I put a quote. I made a video called 17 years, and it starts with fucking hell. It starts with a quote from Morpheus saying, "There's nothing I can say or do for you, Neo. You'll just have to, you'll just have to see or something."
It's great. That's very Krishnamurti. It's very that's the OG. You know, that's
big up Krishna.
Philosophically.
Oh yeah. So I think we were primed in a way to need parkour, and there's speak of like Danny was one person. He'd never seen parkour before, but he was living it before he even found out what it was. Like his first time, he was always climbing around like wearing like those t-shirt ninja masks, sneaking out of his house with his older brothers to climb around pallet yards and like climbing around old people's homes and stuff, like when he was super young. And there's a really old video of Danny in 2001, 2002, where before he's even seen parkour, he saw a video of the Yamakasi on Ripley's Believe It or Not. That was his first time seeing parkour. Before that, he'd seen this, like the story of, he saw like a capoeira guy doing a backflip and then was drawn to it. But then he saw this like, oh, there are other people doing parkour. Then he saw Jump London and he kind of wanted to tell everyone, I've been doing this for ages. Everyone, no. But Oleg's the same. Oleg, people told him that he was doing parkour when he released his videos. Like when I was younger, we used to play foot skating in the playground. Like when I was in year 6. Yeah. Like there was a welling up, and it was literally fucking boiling point.
Wow. It's kind of inevitable that it would be something was going to happen in this way.
There was so many things like, and then
that's so interesting.
When the Rush Hour, BBC Rush Hour with David Bell,
that was my
piece in 2002.
I love that.
When that came out, people were like, "What the fuck is this?" Because there was no name to it then. It didn't say parkour free running.
It's like, what?
And then the year on from there was 2003's Jump London, and then all bets were off. Like any forum that was to do with parkour online went from 100 to 10,000 overnight, apparently. So I've heard. And the people got what they needed.
Quick note: if anyone gets the opportunity to read Oleg Vorslev's bio on his Facebook page,
oh my god,
it's phenomenal.
Oh my god, what is it?
it's just an autobiographical account of Oleg Volosky.
Is it long?
And then this woman called Madonna called me. And
Is it long?
it's quite long. There's a few. It's wonderful.
Broken English.
Highly recommend.
What a legend. Absolute
But
legend.
this is kind of the point. It's like, what was driving the level of innovation that came from Oleg? The level of innovation that came from Danny. Not necessarily that it was the same thing. But I don't know. I think we see some people, not this. Yeah, I think we see some people in the community now who have a very high level of innovation, creativity, that seem to be genuinely drawn not to just showing on social media, but seem to be very curious about what they're producing and how they're moving. I would give the example of maybe you know their actual name, Klickenstein.
I've never heard of that.
I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're like, I think that's like their side account.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Jamie, pull it up.
Sorry. Calum's gone to pee.
I'll go for it. I've got Flynn in the hot seat. I'm going to look up that Klickstein. Okay, so...
Yeah, I think it's Klicken.
Well, the only name they've got is Egg.
Yeah. But I mean, like, exactly. Come on.
Wow.
It's like, wonderful.
I would say if Klickstein's the one I've been watching recently, I was talking to Jack Holland Bartlett about this. There's definitely a few characters that are seemingly into like fringe parkour. Like it's kind of like it's all off axis, strange kind of aesthetic, weird.
Unexplored territory.
It is, yeah. That's all right, Carl. We're just talking about Klickstein and like how he possibly represents these kind of like fringe areas of parkour, like grabs and off-axis shit and weird like aesthetics and music. And I actually find it really interesting to watch because like Josh Malone, is it? Phenomenal, like incredibly creative. But is he still doing what we're doing? Is it its own kind of subgenre, you know?
That's the thing. That's what I think that it's great. I mean, people might get a different impression from what I think of parkour from the way I train, because it is so parkour centric, as in less on the free running kind of scale. But I think the broader parkour gets and the more it's pushed out from what people think it is, the better. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the best things about it is how broad and varied it can be. And yeah.
Would you say it's like music then?
I really feel that reality is a lot like this. Like reality is actually very messy, and the boundaries between things are not actually clear. Like what is if we think about it if we think about that point in an academic context, it's like what is the boundary between physics and chemistry and biology and psychology? These barriers are completely arbitrary, and I think it's actually very healthy. I think for me, it's been very healthy to grow up with this context of the messiness of things, in a very real sense. So I think I agree. It's like it makes it a little bit harder to access in a sense, because it's like, oh, hang on, I thought parkour was this thing, but you're doing this completely different thing.
Yeah.
Like,
what are you doing? This is bouldering. This isn't parkour.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck
Right.
you.
It's like you're dancing. You're meant to be going efficiently from here to here. You're doing the wrong sport. It's like,
exactly.
no, we want to be inviting
Innovation.
Innovation, or I don't know. I'm really not sure. I think it's going to speak to who it speaks to, and I think we need to do the things that we want to do.
Would you say in this sense that parkour is similar to music, and that when you say the word music, well, what do you mean? What type of music? Are you talking about drum and bass? Are you talking about classical? Are you talking about neo soul? Are you talking about death metal? Like they all come under the umbrella of music. So do you think that parkour in a way has this same quality as the word music, or is that?
I mean,
Or
we also use language in the same way that people use for the genres of music, like for example, the monkey movement is a new way, and I think the way that we use free running now, as well as parkour, like we use that as descriptive language for people's styles, and like. Yeah, and I think there are so many ways we use language to describe different genres of movement, and we should use language to our advantage in that sense, to be just descriptive rather than
Prescriptive.
Yeah, like to just categorize more and put into boxes and stuff. It's like people were up in arms about the whole monkey movement video that Kieran Owen released. And
Really?
yeah, it was. I didn't see a lot of it, but what I did see it just sounded kind of pathetic. Like people seem pretty OCD about putting things in boxes.
About not putting things in boxes.
About putting things.
About
in
putting
boxes.
things in boxes.
Mm.
What was the conversation there? By the way, Sam, I really like that analogy of music and parkour. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think that's quite astute.
Thank you.
Sorry. what were people trying to put monkey movement in a specific box? Like this,
I think
is it,
people.
This is not it?
The lines are definitely blurred where one thing starts and one thing stops, and I think people thought, and maybe the video did make it seem like Jimmy was trying to. Kieran, sorry, was trying to make it like its own thing rather than like a way to describe like a way of moving that that has very hard to define boundaries, if you know what I mean. Like, but we know what it looks like the more monkey movement style. Like we know what it looks like, but we don't know where it starts and ends. But it works well. It doesn't work well as a box and a category, but it works well as merely just a descriptive term. And I think, yeah, we just have a bad relationship to language, I think. Maybe a lot of people.
Yeah, probably a lot of people. Well, I think that one goes pretty deep. That one goes very deep.
Because you have people like Mark Bush, Matt McCreary, who essentially embody this, like they even call it like funk. What I don't know why they use this word, but like funk or groove, but it kind of fits. It kind of fit. Yeah, like it kind of fits. Like I don't know. I remember thinking like, yeah, this is funk style. This is a new different subgenre of parkour, and it's not what Callum tends to do, but Callum can dip in and out of it in the same way that a drummer can dip in and out of jazz music or metal. Like, you don't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, such a good analogy. Fuck me. Wow. Yeah. No one should want to put themselves in a box, but yeah, that like you can feel what they mean by saying funk, but no one wants to say like, oh, he's a funk athlete.
I want to be a funk athlete.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I would actually like
Yeah,
to
of
be
course.
called that.
Of course.
From now on, I would like to be.
I will
called a
only
funk
be
athlete.
referred to as a funk athlete. This also brings up this is the era of the map is the territory, the analogy leads reality, but let's just give it a swirl. If these more complex expressions of parkour are sort of more complex expressions of music, analogously, what are the more foundational expressions? And it might be quite interesting to arrange coaching in this context. What are the would you say basics that then create the most potential to specialize in whatever subgenre resonates for the individual? This is a pet peeve for me, is people tend to coach how they train,
Yeah. Oh,
which is unavoidable to an extent. No, sorry, I take that back. It's perfectly avoidable, but it does take some forethought, and it's not necessarily easy.
I mean, then you're just turning. If you're doing that, you're just turning parkour into like what is what can be described as the school system, where like
Right.
it's very
Pass or fail judged by my
yeah,
arbitrary
yeah.
criteria.
Exactly, and I don't know. People need to find their own thing that resonates with them in parkour, and not just like what makes a good athlete based on what's going to do well on social media competitions, and just I don't know.
Here's a question: what if they do want that? So what if you have a kid that comes to your class, or a beginner, and all they see or all they follow is this kind of viral type culture within parkour and competition and clout, and if that is their motivation to get better, and it keeps them up at night thinking about what they can do, and it gets them out training week in, week out, at what point does that become a bad motivation?
Does it? I don't know.
That's my question.
That's my question.
This is another very deep question. You can answer if you want. I have some thoughts you can share.
No, you go first.
I think meaning is very foundational, and we consider these things in a very narrow sense of like, does this fit the idea that I have of what parkour is? But a better question would be, how does this shape this person's life? And if someone becomes very motivated by the pursuit of competition, but this creates this resonance of meaning towards specific actions that create better outcomes for them as an individual, and therefore that ripple effect outwardly, it's like, well, fuck yeah, you should do that. If it turns them into an insufferable person, then it's like, well, maybe not. But this is very much impossible to speak about without the context of what is actually going on. But for me, philosophically, psychologically, meaning is the most foundational thing, and then all our actions are kind of stacked on top of what we find to be meaningful. It's very hard to do anything if you don't have any kind of emotional resonance for the things that you're doing.
And so a thought that came to mind there is relating to one of my questions about these words progress and success. So say this imaginary kid that motivates himself in this way, do we have a right to say that that's what we want to see? Essentially, the three of us, we've been training for a long time, we understand parkour inside out. What do we see as success in parkour? What is a successful? Is it what they can do, or is it who they are? Because you said like, oh, they might turn into an insufferable person, and you kind of implied that was actually a bad thing, because essentially the movement matters less than who the person becomes. So what are we valuing here? Are we valuing success as movement kind of mastery, or are we looking at the person who they are?
It depends what we mean by insufferable. I would say the outer movement does, the inner does reflect the outer. I do think progression is important, and I had this conversation with Will recently, and he was on the opposing side. But I do think progression is really important, but I think it's not at all clear what progression is. And this is the thing. It's like we're saying like, yeah, you need to progress in like X and Y, like cool, maybe like get a bigger squat, be able to jump a little bit faster. But I'm like, for me, it's very context dependent. What that means for me is like me doing an action, maybe it's like a little bit outside of my comfort zone. That might be like a pattern that I'm breaking, something that I'm repeatedly doing in the past, like avoiding I'm a very avoidant person. I have a lot of avoidance. So if I've been avoiding something like a particular movement or like style of movement, and I start practicing it, and I start moving towards it, and I start feeling like joy in that movement, and I'm like, that's a huge progression. Even if I haven't actually like, I don't know, like in some objectively measurable way improved. So
So for example, Flynn, if we're kind of moving on to you a little bit now, we've got sick of Callum, so we'll move on to you. I'm joking.
Good segue.
Would you say, Flynn, like for me as an outsider, watching your movement over the last however long, like 10 years or whatever, I've seen a change in your movement over the last couple of years. And I can only assume that's because you've purposefully changed your mentality behind your training and therefore what movements you do. Now, do you see this as a progression for you? Because you are now exploring different territory.
I would say, if I compare so to give a bit of context for how I see my training kind of progression, let's say my arc, has been a lot of time doing kind of single movements to I think a relatively high level, but let's say like a standing precision or a lache. Very like technical, very like focused, very very meticulous, and I would say that I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm like the traits that I associate that kind of process with are actually not the traits that I want to embody. Like I want to embody a more free and joyful sort of state. I want to be able to express a wider range of my internal states, and partially motivated by thoughts about longevity, in the sense of like, when I'm 60, am I going to be able to smash out like, I don't know, like a giant into a lache precision? Not that I ever really got there with the skill, but
and if that's the only way that you're like measuring your success, then you're going to be severely let down when you get to the point where you inevitably start to
you're really setting yourself
have a decline.
Ido Portal said has said many things that are quite profound, but one of them was the conversation was about one of these bodybuilders, British guy, maybe you'll know who I'm talking about.
I don't follow bodybuilding.
You don't follow bodybuilders, Callum. But I forget who it was now, but was an award-winning bodybuilder and went from this state of being, champion in this very specific realm to losing like a lot of muscle mass, and he's still very strong, but he's much smaller, much older. And the point that Ido was making is, what will be there when everything else is gone?
Yeah.
And I think if we're only training in this very narrow way, where we're not really like confronting ourselves, like I think fronting, just like facing ourselves, even facing it sounds like a little bit aggressive, and that's not really the sense that I want to give. It's not like fuck you, me. It's like no, like that's me. Like, it's more loving. I think it's more loving and giving patience to ourselves. But I think we're at risk of missing a whole host of opportunities that would potentially prepare us for things in later life that will inevitably happen, whether this is becoming a parent, whether this is losing a loved one. And I don't know, I think these things are complex and unexplored. I'm maybe getting a little bit muddled, but yeah, for me, I would say my progression away from single movements has been it does feel like a progression that I've been exploring more fluid type things, more sequential movements. It feels very vulnerable as well. It still feels very vulnerable to do. Whereas if I'm doing one thing, I can do it perfectly. And it's like, boom, I can do it precision. And I'm just like, it's like technically like, boom, full marks, great job. But then if I do a line, it's like, wow, suddenly I'm exposing within this complexity. Suddenly I'm exposing myself. And then boom, try improvisation. Like that's a whole other level, because then you're really exposing your psychology.
Yeah. Your comfort in making yourself vulnerable is progression in itself.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, something that I've been thinking more about with my training in this way as well is like, I think some of the kind of totemic videos in parkour have been parkour literally, and then parkour creative. Wait, what was it? Parkour imaginatively. Now, are we in the next stage where we are parkour spontaneously? Because God, I would love to see that video. Because can we be at a point now where, or maybe should we be encouraging people to, like, you know, if you think you're good, you've got 10 years behind you, I'm going to say go and you've got to move. Do you think that there's perhaps a shift like this with what you're saying about your own training, Flynn?
Well, yeah, this is something. I'm just going to put this out here, and I know that it will make someone very uncomfortable, but this is so. I made this framework to try and. This is a slight side note. You'll have to remind me of the original question because I'll forget. But I made this framework to try and encourage a shift towards people sharing the immense amount of value that is contained within parkour in a more systematic way. So, like.
You mean sharing? You mean selling T-shirts?
Yeah, I mean selling T-shirts.
That's the only value that parkour people seem to be able to put back into the world.
Let's put a pin in that, because that is a conversation, but we're already 2 tangents deep.
Sorry.
So I created this framework just to try and refine what to describe what I've learned in this process of self-employment, and also studying some parts of psychology, and trying to take this sort of first principles approach to starting what we could call a meaningful business, to create an affective goal, something that you actually care about. So this was motivated by none other than Mr. Matt McCreary. And essentially Matt's process is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. He's working with a lot of improvisation,
yes,
which it does show, because there's something very different about his way of moving. But that's something that is very, very humbling to try. Very, very humbling to try improvisation, because there's so much there that you run into and you're just like, fuck, I can't. This is hard, and I feel self-conscious, and I'm getting dizzy, and like all of these things. I'm running in, I hit my shin, and like it's a much broader space. But I think that this is the kind of these are the kinds of spaces that we meet the things that we're looking for. These are the kinds of spaces where we run into the errors that we want to run into. That's how we learn, right? It's like we run into a wall, and then, like, figuratively speaking, and then we're like, ow, okay, don't go that way, go a different way. And I think the original kind of journey into parkour was, for me, so full of revelation, in the sense of meeting these walls and hitting my head against these sharp objects, figuratively speaking, and then going, okay, I need to kind of correct for this error. And I think that can stagnate when the practice stays the same. But I think when you put yourself back into this space of improvisation, suddenly you're really running into these errors again. Yeah, and it's very
head down a completely different route. You suddenly find loads of unturned stuff.
Yeah. Like, oh god.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't been here before. Yeah, and it's very I can't think of the word. Like humility inducing.
Right.
That gets the image across. And it creates a lot of humility, which is, again, a virtue that is wildly undervalued, humility. Please re-ask the original question. Sam,
it wasn't worded very well, but basically I'm really excited about the idea that we've potentially got another strand or potential new training method that people can try.
This is my call to adventure for McCreary to lead the charge, because he's got an unbelievable amount of value to potentially share, and I hope he's going to do that.
Please be listening, Matt.
Yeah. I'm sure he will.
Please don't just sell T-shirts.
Yeah.
You're more than this.
Okay.
You are more than this.
Should we go back to the selling T-shirts point? Because I think this is a reasonable finger to wag at the parkour community.
Yeah, let's do it.
Go ahead, please take it away.
I mean, yeah, you've said it yourself. For something that offers us so much, I feel like we can do better at giving back value to the world. For something that gives us so much value, we can do better than just supplying t-shirts.
Supplying t-shirts. Yeah, but look at this new design. It's like,
selling t-shirts. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know, like people are buying it to associate with the art and the culture and everything, but yeah. I feel like there's just more. We can do more.
Here's a.
Do you think?
Go on. I would like to make this point before it escapes. Although I would very much like to hear what your question is, but I feel this is a point that I've thought about a bit. I don't see the way that we practice coaching parkour is in any way a sustainable thing or a thing that we should be recommending young people do. Yeah, big comment there. My experience with this, and I think it's possible to do in a way, where it's a reasonable job for, say, for someone to do. But there's a point where the level of income, and this is important, I'm being a pragmatic person, the level of income is absolutely capped at a certain point. Cool, okay, are you going to do 40 hours of coaching a week and that's what you're going to do from now? It's like, well, you could do that. But it's not everyone can do that just physically. My work capacity is not nearly that high.
Oh, I'm 40 hours of teaching kids every week. Fuck me.
Yeah. Very intense. Very intense. Is it that's one point. Another point is that going to yield the most growth in you? We learn from our environments. That's the way that we learn. We learn through error correction, like I said. If I just do like the same, just the basics, if this is all I'm teaching, that's also very, very much capped in terms of what I'm going to adapt to, what I'm going to learn to do as an individual, as a teacher. I see the way that we're running coaching a lot of the time in these sort of like, yeah, you can come for an hour a week. Maybe you'll come next time, maybe not. Give me like 10 quid. This is wildly unsustainable for the teacher. Not that beneficial for the student. This is a very, very, very old model that I think we've just sort of grown up with from seeing like the classes that like Forrest and these guys were running back in the day. And we've gone, cool, this is what we've inherited. But it's like, nope, we can do very many different things. And so I would point again towards things like online coaching, that like or online coaching or working with an individual for a longer period of time, saying like, hey, me and you are going to work together and I'm going to give you some programming for movement, and I'm going to be humble about it. I'm not going to say, this is what you have to do. I'm going to say, these are some options or whatever. But there's just many ways to do this. But again, we're sort of stuck on like t-shirts and like 1 hour of coaching a week. And like, we can do much, much better than this.
So, yeah, I've got 2 points here. So firstly, on the t-shirt thing, do you think the simple truth is that, and shout out to everyone that's making t-shirts and trying their absolute best, equally store it.
not to hate on the t-shirt manufacturers.
I'm wearing pretty parkour shirts. Those ladies.
Shout out Pretty Parkour.
It is okay. Is a reasonable thing to suggest that parkour people on the whole currently are just not very business savvy. Not many people in parkour. Well, okay, let me frame it the other way. There's a stereotype of parkour people that we are very free, like you said before, Callum, that we're very into traveling and community and a very loose and kind of loving lifestyle. But do you think
we're good, but we don't know what makes us good?
Maybe, yeah. But do you think that this has actually caused us to, not go into business degrees, not go into marketing
and that's.
I don't think we need to go into business degrees. I subscribe to the school of thought that says these are old institutions. We're in a new time. The old notion of, this is a very controversial statement, but there was a time where the only way to access whether gatekeeping to certain types of knowledge was only able to be crossed through going to, say, university. For a lot of types of knowledge, that is no longer the case. That's just the way that things are now. It's different with the internet, with cheap books. And I don't recommend spending that much time on the internet. I don't think you're actually going to find the truth on the internet, but I think you can find a lot through books and through making mistakes and then realizing. But yeah, I agree with the direction with your point.
And I also agree with what you're saying. As in, like, university degrees do not have the same, they don't equate to the same value that maybe they once did, or how people perceive it now. So that's, I was kind of using an example.
I was kind of using an example.
I'm not sure about that.
Sorry, come on.
No, because there's a lot of them. Once it was like 30% of the population,
right.
And now it's like very, very, very high. So just through the value and scarcity, a lot of people have a degree that are just like, like it shows that I can work hard.
So do you think they're looking more at... Yeah, that's the fucking thing as well. You can get jobs just to, show that you have the piece of paper that shows that you have discipline enough to see through 3 years of lectures and bullshit while you've been drunk and hungover and shit as well.
The signal, just to clarify my thought here, that the signal is I'm competent. That's a signal that people need to say, okay, I'm going to employ this person. I can achieve that signal through going to university. And look, I'm competent. I have a degree from this university. I could also achieve that signal that says I'm competent by showing results.
Yeah, a portfolio.
Having a portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that's much more important, especially in the arts. Like
not for everything. I don't be like your own surgeon. You know what I mean? Like, look, I've done loads of successful like frog surgeries. Just like come into my garage and I'm gonna sort you out. Don't do this, guys. But like learn stuff, be passionate, take risks. Some of you will fail, some of you will succeed.
I think for me, looking back on my degree, I did environment and sustainability and have not used that at all yet, apart from just showing off to an employer. But like, for me, I think that the rep that a university degree is both appropriately bad and appropriately good. Like, as in, I fully understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, like, uni is not easy. It is fucking difficult. Like, and the skills that you learn in there, like, for example, how to write an essay and reference, to a professional standard. Like, I think as well that university, it has the potential to help you access a huge array of people from different cultures and backgrounds. Maybe we're veering off topic a little bit here, but it's an interesting one because essentially we're talking about, how do we, I agree with you. I think that things are changing, that we need to understand like how we can be sustainable as coaches and how we can create an infrastructure of parkour, like as a livelihood. How do we do this? There's no single answer.
I want my people to be, we don't need to be flipping Jeff Bezos, but we need to have a steady income, enough to save, enough to, get a mortgage or something. Get a family. Like, that's the thing, right? It's like, chances are you're going to want a family at some point. Not everyone does, that's fine, but chances are you will. And being sold this sort of like pyramid scheme of like, become a coach and then become an extra coach and then become an extra special double coach. It's like, I don't believe in this at all.
You mean there's no difference between level 2 adapt and level 3 adapt?
I can't comment on that because I don't want to be sued for libel, but I think there are ways to organize these things that are very good for everyone, where no one is losing out, and I think we should be doing more of those things.
So do you feel that for example, you've set up this online exploration group, which myself and Callum have been taken into. Should we think more in this direction? So should coaches be thinking of the technology we have at hand, how much we can connect with people and offer value in this way? Because, for example, I'm sure as the culture gets older as well, the amount of combined knowledge and expertise is so huge that you could reach out to someone who's a famous athlete and say to them, well, I understand what you're doing wrong, perhaps more than you understand. Do you want me to help coach you? Do you think this is viable?
I think the market of elite athletes who are looking for coaches is very small. So I think this is not a place to put one's attention in that sense. The question to ask is, what is the most value can I give as an individual? And probably that's going to be the area where I can get the most value back. And this is a point that I made. I did some research before this framework that I wrote on the question of what is money? Like, the way that I try and think about things is really assume that I don't know anything, which happens to be true, and then think up from there. So it's like, okay, we're talking about money. Like, what really is this thing? I have this sense of it as being this medium for exchanging value. We could then ask, what is value? It's maybe something that brings someone benefit in some way. It's not a very satisfactory answer, but it's the best I can do right now. And sorry, I've forgotten your question.
It's all right. I was okay to reframe and to give an example. Imagine someone like Chris Scott, for example, who I think is vastly underrated.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, big time.
And so say you have Chris, right? Or someone like Chris, and we will get more Chris's, I think, as time goes on, because hopefully people will mature and kind of understand more and more about parkour and the body and the mind and all this and all that. Do you think that someone like Chris should, or there's a potential for someone like Chris to say, look, Ed Scott, I watch all your videos. I understand your movement patterns and your biomechanics maybe better than you. Shall I coach you? Do you think that this is a potential viable route that people in parkour could take if they are willing to?
No. Purely because of the numbers. There aren't that many Ed Scotts, and also Ed Scott has a Tom Taylor. Also, we all have a potential Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor is also a very wonderful strength coach. Shout out Tom.
There we go.
I got very, very strong training with Tom once. So the point there is it's at this level it's a numbers game. So I refer you back to my earlier answer. Where can you give the most value? That's probably where you can get the most value back. Value is a medium for the reciprocal exchange of value. I give value to you. You symbolize that value through money to me. So, I think it's worth asking, where can you as an individual, like, what are your, where do you perhaps specialize, and where could you, so there's the idea of skill stacking. So it's like, what am I, it's very hard to be the best in the world at something, very, very, very hard, but it's not that hard to be like the pretty good at like 2 or 3 things, in a sense. Like, this is the idea that it takes 80% of the effort to get through the last 20%, something like this. Like, to get to the top 20% would take 80% of the effort that it took to get to the top 80%. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You'll have to rewind that a couple of times if you're listening to it, but I think I got that right. So, yeah. To backtrack there, my point is that if you want to make a sustainable income from parkour, you have to look at the most widely valuable things that you can offer. And that might be, for example, parkour and strength coaching. Great combination. That might be parkour and some kind of like therapeutic work. Great combination.
Shout out Kasturi.
Shout out Kasturi, yes. There are many ways in which this can be spun, and I wish I thought of more examples, but I think there are more sort of micro examples within parkour.
T-shirt?
Callum, we've been over this. No t-shirts.
Sorry.
Okay, here's another perspective. So let's think about target audience, right? So let's think about who wants to buy some t-shirts. No, I got that wrong. So let's think about who might be interested in parkour. The average person, maybe, it's possible. If you just sent like a kind of, I don't know why no one is doing this, but if you just sent like an Instagram advert, here I've got this 6-week course, come and learn the basics of parkour, then you can kind of do what you want. That'd be wonderful. But there's also the whole movement culture, like Ido Portal's sort of region of people who are generalist practitioners. They are fascinated by the idea of extracting the value from things. Right, so this is an example, but we could also take dancers, we could take rock climbers. Like, I've made this point a number of times. The market is so large that we can't even see it. There are so many gaps in it that we can't even see that it's there. Yeah. Did that answer his question? I think you went to pee when he asked it.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, so I don't think it's sustainable to market solely towards the sort of 1% of parkour athletes, purely because there aren't that many of them. But if you wanted to make a sustainable income, then you would need to market to a broader range of people. But it doesn't need to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, but yeah.
People that can benefit from challenging themselves.
Yeah.
Is quite a big net.
It's a big net, exactly.
It's a big net.
Yeah. And then we're thinking about and this is what I was insinuating. What things are universally valuable? Having intense, interesting experiences. Yeah, every person wants that. You say, hey, do you want a boring life or a kind of interesting, exciting life? Oh yeah, no, I think I'll take a boring life. It's like, no, everyone wants the more interesting option. Everyone wants to be healthy. Everyone wants to be motivated. Like, there's just so much that there are so many empty spaces in this market that people can't even see it.
Some people don't know that challenge is what they need to have those experiences.
Yeah.
They say, I mean, I've heard Stefan Brugger say it quite a few times. Parkour can be for everybody, but it's not for everybody. Something like that. Yeah. I think I fucked it up. Something like that. Yeah. And yeah, like some people, they know the value of challenge, but some people just don't want any of it, and they probably won't enjoy. A parkour class.
It's very very possible. Yeah, but and it also depends so much on how we, in a sense, how we define the practice. And I think it can be defined in many different ways, because it's a very, very broad, in my perspective, it's a landscape, it really is. I think it's possible to, no, you're right, it's not for everyone, like that's also, this is my like liberal, like left wing, I want to make it for everyone, but the reality is there's probably some people who...
That's the thing, I think everyone needs it, but they don't, you can't want it if you don't know what you need, if that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of groundwork as well. Like I had a conversation with when the New Haven Parkour Park opened in I think May 2010. Sorry for being so good at dates.
I declare this Parker Park.
I declare this Parker site. Great day. Yeah, there were a bunch of kids that, when the parkour park opened, were super into parkour, and I'd see them there every time, and I'd teach them some swing stuff. Yeah. and they'd like learn new things on their own every time I'd come there, and I was like, wow, this is the next
is it.
generation.
Yeah.
This is sick. Wow, this is all we needed to like, yeah. And one day I came, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months later, this kid, I don't know whether he went through puberty or whatever, but he came to the park while I was training with Sasha, and he said, "Oh, you're still doing that parkour thing?"
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, man. I've been doing it for nearly 5 years now, in 2010. And he was like, "Isn't that like effort?" And I was like,
Oh my god.
ooh, oh my gosh. And I was just like, yeah, it is, I suppose. Have a good life, buddy. Have fun with that. Have fun with that mentality.
Oh man.
I'll see you in.
It's
Another 10 years.
It's such a
see
good
where
point.
you're at.
It's such a good point. Like there's a lot up in our culture right now that's like pretty weird. There's a lot of pretty weird stuff going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that everyth's just so easy, and it's so easy to be so comfortable.
Isn't that?
But yeah, isn't that effort? I was like, whoa. It hit me hard because I was because I saw this kid. I think his name was Bradley. 100%. I remember his face.
Shout out Bradley.
Shout out Bradley. But yeah, it was just such a loss. Like, I mean, for me, because I was like, yeah, this kid's gonna be sick. Like he had his like jumping bar catch 180 turn, and then like lâcher prise and everything. Like he had all that stuff on lock, and he was growing. Like every time I'd come there, he'd learn new stuff on his own. And then I don't know what changed, like something in his mentality. Like I said, maybe puberty, but suddenly a complete shift in his outlook on life, and he wasn't that down to challenge himself anymore. I don't know. Hopefully that was just a fleeting moment in his life.
Do you think that hits you so hard because essentially potential is like the Jesus Christ of parkour?
Whoa.
Potential.
As in we revere, is that the right word? Like all we talk about and all we think about is our potential, right?
Damn.
And you saw the potential in him, and it hit you so hard because.
Deep of a question that is.
So
Great question.
Oh right, thanks.
I'm knocked back by how deep of a question that is. I know it, and I know exactly what you mean. I know what you mean.
That assumes that all we think about is our future self, right? Because our life can be more than just working toward our future self. It can be for the experiential value of the moment as well. I missed the question.
No, I think there's a great tension there. There's a great tension there between living with the knowledge that you're going to die, and that you could indeed die at almost any moment, which is very much true and something we should reflect on, but also assuming that one is going to have a future. And there's a tension because those things send you in kind of opposite directions in a sense. There's a lovely story in The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah, I hate that book personally, but yeah.
Nonetheless, I shall share the story where the boy. What's the?
I love the character. I think he's great. I can't remember his name. I think he's great.
Yeah. Do you remember the character's name, Sam? The main character.
I can get Jamie on it. Hold on.
Jamie.
Keep talking. Yeah, I'll find it.
He's in this old mansion, and he meets this wise sort of king figure, and this the owner of the mansion he's speaking to, and he says, take this spoonful of oil, and go walk around this kind of wild mansion where this party is going on. There's all this beautiful art, and come back and give me the spoon back. And so the boy goes and he walks around and he sees all this wonderful stuff and blah 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 blah. Comes back and he's like, crap, I've dropped my oil. It's all spilled. And the king's like, okay, take the oil again in the spoon. This time go and enjoy the party, but don't drop the oil. Okay, so it goes around him. And the I don't know what he gets from this. He gets like a thumbs up from the king, but the point is that it's like there is this tension between enjoying what you're experiencing and still working towards something. And I think we're missing a bit of that within parkour in the sense that, and I notice this in myself as well. I'm quite the last maybe 6 months I haven't done much strength training really since the last summer, and I've been enjoying moving a lot. But I'll come to the end of the session and I sometimes feel a little bit frustrated. Like I feel like I haven't actually done that much. Whereas when I was doing more strength and conditioning work, kind of mixed within parkour, I was like, okay, I actually feel like, I don't know, I felt a little bit more like I was working towards something. And I think it's that kind of connection to work, connection to the future, connection between the work that I'm doing now is for a purpose, is for this vision of myself in the future. It is something very, very valuable that I can see is not there in a lot of younger people who are training at the moment. It's a little bit nihilistic in a sense of there's nothing beyond the present moment. But we kind of have to act as if there is. As if there is something, but hedonistic.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the rate of patella tendonitis has probably gone up. That's complete conjecture, but I would not be at all surprised if the rate of patella tendonitis has gone up in the last 4 years, because people are very, very externally driven. It's like, what can I do? It's not how am I experiencing this.
But surely that will link towards just more people getting into parkour as well, right?
For me, the main constraint in parkour is that you don't fuck yourself up. Like, in a sense, if you do parkour and you're fucking yourself up, you're failing to some extent. The main constraint to me is that you're not giving yourself long-lasting damage.
Santiago.
Santiago. Yes, I remember. I don't remember that part of the book either. I mean,
I don't remember that part of the book, Flynn, actually.
It was there.
I believe you.
It's in the epilogue, in the special epilogue. You have to light a candle and then it shows up.
I thought nearly. I don't remember any king or kingdom. What the hell? I remember near the end he was by some big oasis that a lot of like.
The Alchemist.
Yeah.
I might be embellishing, but it's something happened.
Just to go off track a little bit, I heard so much about the Alchemist book by Paulo Coelho, but I didn't know the author's name. I just knew the book was something Alchemist. I found a book in a shop called Alchemist by Peter James, who is a Brighton author.
Oh no!
And this book was nearly 1,000 pages long. I bought and read the whole thing, and I was like, I don't know why people are raving on about this. And then found out it was not the right book.
Are you finding this out now, or you've already found it?
No. I've since read Paulo Coelho, his The Alchemist,
and you're
not just
not
Alchemist.
a fan.
I prefer Alchemist.
Yeah.
by Peter James. It was fucking great. Like black magic and like some evil pharmaceutical company. Honestly, I took more from that. No.
Shout out Peter James.
I mean, after Brighton author represent. I mean, he managed to make one book without "dead" in the title, and Alchemist was one of them, I guess. Sorry. Yeah, maybe after hearing about that oil and spoon race that you're talking about, I need to reread the Alchemist.
There's some good tidbits.
There are sure. I think I've come a long way since reading it the first time round, and I was just like, fuck, this is bullshit.
There's a kind of skepticism there's a kind of rationality that is, because everything, as we know from the group as we've been studying, ultimately everything is sort of rooted within emotion. So it's like we say, oh yeah, I'm being rational, but it's like there's a significant chance that something else is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I was like kind of predisposed to not liking it by my subconscious contrarian traits and psychological hang-ups that kind of makes me want to dislike things that many other people like. So maybe I read it and I was just like, this is fucking bullshit. But yeah, I think you're being super rational, but really, you're just being emotional, more emotional. You know a phrase I heard that I hate more than anything else,
Great.
and me and Sasha have laughed about this. The term realist.
I'm just a realist.
I'm not an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. I see things how they really are.
I see things how they are.
Unperturbed by any kind of emotion. No, I see things how they really are. It's
There's a lot of people.
Anyone that uses that phrase that thinks they're
you're setting yourself up for error.
Unbiased, unemotional. Yeah.
Flynn, what do you mean by orthogonal pedagogy?
I'm first of all, I'm so sorry. I just came up with. I don't put much attention into names. I just do stuff. So that was basically the first name that came to me, and I was like, great, sorted, move on, do the thing. But yeah, so orthogonal means at a right angle to, and it sort of represents the notion of efficiency within parkour, which I see as the defining trait of the practice in a sense, is this notion of efficiency. If there was one idea that you could have that would just sort of let you loose and you would maybe develop something quite interesting, that notion would be to do the thing efficiently without wasting energy. And so orthogonal pedagogy, so pedagogy is a way of teaching. So essentially it means the efficient way of teaching. And what I believe it is actually something quite interesting. I think I might have found something very interesting, which is a very low cost way of creating education, creating learning, to be more specific. So I spend a lot of time considering, and practicing the process of learning partially from the bottom up through kind of trial and error, like learning stuff through my own experience, and partially from the top down, so sort of learning a bit about learning. In what ways do we understand things? So this is ideas like analogy is the core of cognition, which is an idea from Douglas Hofstadter, who's a very interesting intellectual. And essentially it's what I've come to so far, it's at least 3 phases, translating between information is a sort of like disembodied, like a whisper on the wind, or like the text before you've read it. It's sort of information. It's not necessarily digested. So disembodied information, knowledge as a thing that is embodied. It's a thing that's sort of contextualized. Okay, so I've got that information, and now I understand it in this context. Oh, okay, it means this, and then we're relating it to our own experiences. And I'll talk about that after, actually. Wisdom. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how to structure this. So I'll start again. So we have the period of focusing on information, we have a period of focusing on knowledge, and we have a period of focusing on wisdom. Information being a disembodied force, knowledge being a sort of social phenomena, and wisdom being an individual and applied sort of variant of knowledge. So it's actually not enough just to know something. It actually doesn't get you that far just to know something. I have run into this many times. I can tell you quite confidently that it's not enough just to know something. You have to know exactly how to apply it, and you have to be aware of a lot of nuance. So essentially it's the way of structuring the learning process within the exploration group, of trying to quite efficiently take information as a sort of disembodied force, like here's the contents of this book, here's some information about this subject, and then we're taking that information, we're putting it into context, which is the sort of knowledge phase, and we're doing this through conversation. And so we're speaking about these things, we're talking about these things, we're saying, like, what's your experience with this? Like, where have you noticed this phenomena, this scientific phenomena? Where have you noticed this in your life? How can you put this into the context of your own experiences? How can you analogize this through your own experiences? And then the wisdom phase, which considers how can these things be be applied. And this is a sort of individual project-led period. And and then there's a lot to say because there's a lot there, although it's sort of concise in a way. But the intention with the last phase is to create again this idea of an affect with an A, as in like the internal state, an affect-driven goal, an affect-driven project. So that's finding a space within the research that you were personally interested in, and then asking how can you research this further. So to find this emotively driven place. Well, so first of all, it's like why emotive? There's a lot of very, 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 very interesting. I don't know how much time we have, but like.
Yeah, keep going, man, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I can go for a while, so I don't know.
Well, put it this way: we're coming up. We've got 12 minutes until the 2-hour mark.
Until Q&A. Okay, I'll just wrap it up very, very briefly by saying essentially what we find to be interesting, what we find to be significant, physiologically triggers the process associated with optimal learning. It's a lot of words there, but it really means something. When we find something interesting, the process of learning that is optimal physiologically, like the chemistry, the neurochemistry of our body, opens up in a way that facilitates learning. Very cool. So the point is, find something that you're interested in, learn about that. It's not me saying, here's this criteria, here's this test that you have to pass. It's like, here's the raw material, here's the conversation in which you can understand it, and then go and research it further in a way that you care about. So that's what the orthogonal pedagogy is.
Lovely. That wasn't long at all.
Nice. Well, that was because I actually wrote recently an essay which I want to turn into a short film. I've written the essay that's done, and it's called The Broken Compass. Well, actually, I probably won't call it. Maybe if I make a film, I'll call it The Broken Compass. But it's using the analogy of Jack Sparrow's compass, and it's like about the relationship between meaning, emotion, and learning. Because Jack's compass, it doesn't point you north. It doesn't point you where you think you should go. It points you where you most want to go. So you're like, crap, this is useless. You know, like I don't want to go there. I want to go here. But it's like, no, actually, you want to go here. And so it's this analogy of like the thing that you can learn about most successfully will be the thing that you're most interested in. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I've kind of implemented this idea in my coaching, and it's been working very well actually. Like as in with my private lessons, I've said to them now, so I've taken them to a new spot that they've never been to before. And, you know, we kind of do like a warm up or whatever, and we kind of chat a little bit. And then I've started saying to them, okay, we've had a look around this spot now. What draws your attention? And the change in like their kind of emotion and also the fluidity of the session seems to be so much better, because you're essentially saying, well, I'm here to facilitate what you want to do. And it's actually really, really good. I mean, what I would love to know more, or kind of think about more, is how to scale this up to group sessions, because and in fact this is actually one of my questions that I was going to ask Callum or both of you, in that do you think that teaching parkour in groups is actually suboptimal ultimately? Because there's so many factors at play, whereas with one person or two people or a small group, it's easy to manage the complex kind of variables.
I think people are very smart, and I don't think we need to manage them as much as we think we do. No, some people have something to prove, and those guys are going to get injured. And I say guys, because it's usually guys, are going to mess themselves up regardless of what you do. But again, this question that you asked, like, how does it feel? What do you want to do? Like, we have these smoke detectors inside of us, which function as our intuition, which are very biased towards keeping us alive. So our feelings are primarily concerned with us avoiding death or injury, and so they tend to bias on the safe side. And my experience has been that communicating this to people, like, hey, you're actually in charge, like, in a sense, like I can give you constraints, I can give you sort of programming in the sense of like some exercises where the pattern that you want is uncovered. I can, give you these things, but and I can help you make decisions as well. But ultimately, it's down to you. It's like, because I think we don't want to be at a point with coaching where it's like, hey, no, you shouldn't do that. I think a good coach protects his student, or a good coach protects their student from their own bad ideas. I was teaching recently, and I didn't do this, and someone hurt their ankle. And I didn't say, I wasn't forthright enough with, like, are you sure that you feel this? I was more like, yeah, no, you can do this, and I was wrong. And that's not a testament. Like, that's not a testament to my own intuition, but it's just like well, no, it is, like, it will always be bad. Like, in a way, like I can't intuitively know how you feel. And so a good teacher protects their students from their own bad decisions in this way. So yeah, I think it can be done, group classes, but I think you need to do it in a way where you're not trying to control everything. It depends what your intention is with the class as well.
I think there has to be a level of, in the same way that with a private lesson or a single person, the sort of proclivity of to get to know them is easier than getting to know a group of people. So therefore, essentially, if you want to teach your group of kids or your group of adults or whatever, then maybe a good starting point is really get to know who they are as personalities, because that at least sets you up in a way that you can adapt to different kind of needs and desires. Because if you don't, like, if you go into a class and you don't, it's week 5 and you still can't remember what little Jimmy's name is, like, what how are you going to understand what they want out of the class if you can't even remember, like, their name, And I'm guilty of this as well, but I just think maybe something to consider, like, for people.
There's a lot there. So it depends what group we're teaching. I would say if we're teaching children, then we have a high level of responsibility, because they simply aren't developed enough. Not necessarily. Some kids are remarkably in touch with themselves, and this is what we should be facilitating. And we could speak about what the greater orientation is, and that would also be a very interesting conversation. But there are also, I think we should definitely make the effort to know people's names, but it's also a very different type of knowledge that, like, I know someone's, lack of a better word, I know their energy. Unfortunately, a word that's been stolen. But I know what they're working with. I know their orientation. I know a bit about their kind of maybe I have a sense of how they feel, what they avoid. This is much more important. It's great to know someone's name, and it makes them feel really good, and that's a great thing, and it makes them feel known, and it makes them feel heard, and we should try and know people's names. But it's just to clarify that, I think there are many different layers within this, and also some coaches are going to have or some whatever people are going to have a greater capacity to. I'm quite good at remembering names. Callum's very good at remembering dates. I'm not at all good at remembering dates. I don't know how Callum is at remembering names.
I'm alright at remembering names as well. But
I think.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Being able to read people and their and like, yeah, energy. I can't think of another word as well.
Callum Powell saying energy.
Their vibe, their kind of intentions, what they want out of...
Affect is not a bad word, but I think you need to know, sort of what it means.
Yeah, it is. It is important, because, but I don't know, because then you need to decide, like, what is good for that person. and what aligns with their energy and what they need and everything. Like
which is very very hard to know. And you don't want to be taking on that responsibility.
That is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Like, do you have a degree in? Are you a psychologist? No, you're like a parkour coach.
Yeah,
you probably live at your parents' house. Like
teach people to do vaults and shit.
Yeah.
Kong and lazy vault. And if they do that by the end of the class, it passed with flying colours. But it's.
This reminds me actually. Just I want to make a nuance to what I said earlier, which is I think that largely what I said applies to things where regarding the point I made about university. I think this mostly applies to things where you're not directly responsible for an individual in a sense. So I would say things like psychology, you need to be very, very cautious around. I've spent a lot of time in this area, of psychology, physiology, psychophysiology, but I'm still very, very, very cautious. Very, very, very humble around these things. And I think people are very flagrant with like, no, you should do this, or like, I think that you need this. It's like, well, do you? Like what, like, we need a bit more grounding here, and humility I think is always a good place to start. I think we often don't know what people need. Do you know what you need? Like let's start there, and that's a great place to start.
That's why it's good to try and attack it with a wide net and try and teach people Kong and lazy vaults.
If something comes up, that's good.
Usually does the job.
We can build it. We can build it up. We can build it down.
Yeah,
break it down.
Okay. Well, we are. We've hit the 2-hour mark, I think, which is fantastic. We have some questions. So some of these are specific, some of them are serious, some of them are bullshit. So we'll
I can't wait for Ryan Taggart's question.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Please, if you're listening to this, not even as a self-promotion, but just go onto my flyndisney.com/what people are saying and watch the video at the bottom, because it's Ryan. Ryan put something quite special together for the.
It's hilarious. It is hilarious.
You'll see.
Yeah, it's bold. It's bold.
It's pretty great.
Bold.
It's very bold.
Okay, so where are we? Okay, so I got a number of questions from a number of people. Thank you for everyone that has submitted these. First of all, from Andy Vogelsberg, who says,
"Oh no, again! God's sake! Not more of this exploration group rabble! Oh no! A bunch of bloody."
He says, "I'd like to congratulate Callum to finally having a beard grow on him."
Oh man, so true. Oh man, I'm not there yet. I can't. It's a very early.
Step on the boat and it'll just pop out.
Early step onto the boat.
On the boat, it just goes.
All right.
That's why I got mine.
Is that an invite to your boat? Oh yeah, thank you, Andy. You bastard. I've been repping the chin strap, the Abe Lincoln chin strap for way too long. Oh man, it's embarrassing. And what's annoying is like in both of Star's feature length documentaries, I'm always caught at like the very end of the trip where I haven't like shaved for like a very long time, and I just look like a chin strap mess. Yeah. Anyway, next bloody question.
Next one. This is from a young lad that I've taught before, called Alex Smith. Shout out to Alex. He's a big fan of Stora, I think. And he asks for both of you, what is your worst injury?
The one I've got right now.
The back, right?
I mean, I consider the worst injury not the one that is most acutely painful, but the most chronic injury, the one that keeps you from doing what you like for the longest. And that is definitely the back injury that I've got right now. How about you?
Yeah, I once broke my left wrist and I was like completely fine. Just put it in a cast, kept on training. And then I broke my right wrist like 2 years later, and I was a complete mess. So I was like totally like emotionally shattered by the experience. I think it was like a lot about being in hospital for like 4 days, and then like the subsequent period and a lot of other stuff that was happening. So that was like the physical injury that triggered a lot of emotional hurt or sort of uncovered it. Can I ask what's been your best injury?
My best injury? Oh, man, I mean,
Great question.
honestly, also maybe the injury that I have now.
Yeah, same. This has also been my best injury.
Right?
My right wrist has been like the most educational.
Because it forces you into stress. That's the thing. It forces you into a new challenge, and you have to, like, facing not being able to do stuff that's at my peak anymore. Like, having that prospect of a future is something that I've now come to terms with and adapted to, and is a stress that I didn't know I needed for the past 10 years or something. But it's devastating. It's 100% devastating, and I'm not over it yet. Not by any means, but like I'm working on it, and it's fucking hard. Like, so yeah, it's the worst injury, but it's the best because it's been the most difficult. And I don't know. It sounds fucking cheap and pretentious, but yeah, I think parkour has taught me to find the best in the most challenging situations, and this is up there.
Not that you should just go out and injure yourself.
No, not
But
at all.
pay attention to what you don't expect. Pay attention to your surprises, and you could probably avoid some significant injuries.
But as well as facing that, but just learning so much about. I mean, with every injury, it's come with learning something new about my body, which, I mean, other people have bodies as well, so I'm learning about their bodies as well, and I can help people with their own injuries, and I'm learning a lot. And then,
do you relate your injuries to your psychology as well, to your like patterns of action and your perceptions, your values, stuff like this?
I mean, it's
emotions.
Yeah. I thought I had an answer then, but then it escaped me. Say it again.
Do you relate your injuries to your psychology, to your internal state? If you receive an injury, do you consider how has my feeling or my what I value, how has this contributed, or what I think about things, how has this contributed towards my injury? And then maybe adjust those things or consider those things, become aware of some things.
Yeah, I don't know. What about your experience with your wrist?
Yeah, for me, well, like this one basically changed my whole life. But I would say I've done that to a smaller extent with a lot of other stuff. So if I'll like smack my shin on something, it's like, Well, a good example is so I banged my right knee on a wall like 4 months ago in Lisbon, and
I heard about this.
Yeah,
lazy vault.
Yeah, exactly, classic lazy vault over a wall, basic boya.
Yeah.
And I could reflect quite clearly that it felt like that happened because my attention shifted from inside my body to outside my body.
Yeah.
And I stopped like feeling, just like having the intention of doing the thing, or just like getting over the wall, being where my body was, and my attention shifted to like, oh, there's some cool people over there. I want to be cool.
Yeah.
And so that was like. It's like, cool, okay, I'm still doing this kind of thing, and I could admit that to myself and be aware of this. Yeah,
I mean, injury can be, like you said, error correction as well. Yeah. I mean, it can be revealing of something that you're maybe not doing in the most optimal way. Yeah, like everything is feedback. I guess
everything's cybernetics. These are all cybernetic concepts. Error correction, feedback loops. Right. Yeah, seeing things as information.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, everything is information
Yeah,
and
makes
data, and we are just constantly collecting data. And with every error comes more data,
More data.
and yeah, stuff to build upon. I suppose.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a number of things to get through, so I'll just this is
Unfortunately,
unfortunately, like no, that was awesome. That was great. Some of them are more specific than others, so try and, I guess, be more concise.
Let's get a one-word answer. Come on.
Okay, well, the next question is from... Oh, shit. I can't see the rest of his title. Oh, shit. This is not very professional, is it? Shit, okay, I'm just going to say Brian. I'm sorry, Brian. Brian_restore practice, I think it is. Anyway, he just says, tips for beginners, question mark.
Can I answer this one?
As concisely as possible.
Yes.
Yes. Fuck's sake. Oh,
Sorry, I meant no. No.
I mean, no. Tips for beginners. Find someone to do parkour with. I think is a good one. YouTube tutorials are good, everything, but I don't know. It's good to do it with someone for more than one reason.
Yeah. Find what you enjoy and connect to that. Become curious.
Lovely. Sorted. Next one is from Dean Jumps, aka Dean Stimpson, one of my boys. He says, what's the best way to approach an athlete when you know who they are, but they don't know who you are? Callum?
I'm trying to think of really awkward encounters that I've had with people that know who I am.
So many to choose from.
Like this podcast.
Just don't think about it, man. Like it's not worth thinking about. Just talk. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to have a strategy. I don't feel like don't make it complicated. Just
I've run into people saying surprising things like, "Oh, I met X person and they were cold to me." It's like, what do they owe you? Like, yeah. So I don't know.
And also, what were they doing at the time?
What were they? Yeah. How were they feeling at the time?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like
they're mid challenge, like zoned in. You interrupt their tunnel vision with like interrupt someone's flow state. You blow their flow state.
blow their
God, you're gonna get a cold person.
Be your beautiful, loving self, Dean. You're a beautiful man.
Yeah.
He is. He certainly is. He's very good, by the way.
Dean's amazing. He's incredible.
very, very good.
I'm putting this out there now in front of you two because you're very good as well. But I want you to know that Dean is very good.
I forget. Is he? He's not Newcastle as well.
He is. He's Newcastle, yeah.
He is. Yeah. Dean's amazing.
But he lives in York now, which is why I've kind of trained with him for the last few years. So.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah.
Big up Dean.
Big up Dean. So Dean.
He'll love that. Okay, so this one is from Callum Not Johnston.
Yes.
Who says, how much do you think the early coaching style influenced the culture / community?
I love Callum.
We've kind of
We've
covered that actually.
Callum and I have some odd resonance, coming from very different directions, but we're hitting a lot of the same things. Yeah.
What do you think? Oh fuck! Low power, mate. Damn it! I'm gonna plug us in.
Yeah.
It depends. What do you think he means by old coaching style?
I think like Forest and stuff like this, like the. I think they were. Yeah, it depends how old, but I think even Forest.
Is this still recording?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty sure. I think Forest and early Dan. I can't speak for now Dan, but I think they were even imitating the ADD style of coaching.
Oh shit, we've lost them.
Oh, my bad.
We got you?
Yeah, we got you.
Got you, good.
Sorry.
Yeah, carry on, sorry.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I feel like we answered this one earlier, so I think I don't think I could say anything more.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I don't know. What was the question again? Do you think early PK Gym kind of style coaching affects how we're coaching now? Was that the...
Roughly, like, how has it influenced the community?
Oh, I don't know. Hopefully it didn't turn a lot of people off parkour. Because the thing is, a lot of people like really challenging parkour classes, and that will get a lot of people back. But for people that just want to do some kongs and lazy vaults, probably not. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
Like I think I said it earlier, like different personalities will want different things from parkour and everything. And like parkour is so broad, like there's no, like there's not going to be just one thing that applies to the needs of one person. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
You could say like every single parkour coach's coaching style like will probably resonate with a more particular person, but it won't resonate with someone else. And there'll be reasons why each one will lose and gain students. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Cool.
But I mean, chances are most of your students are coming from watching Stora videos, so
that's statistically accurate at this point.
I mean, you know,
wow.
I mean,
you get them doing quadrupedian stuff rather than fucking fat roof gaps. They're probably going to be upset. You know what I mean?
Jumping into piles of sand and getting whiplash. Sorry, man. How is Ben's neck?
It's good now.
It's fine.
It's good now. But it was like a good week where it was terrible.
I love Ben. Ben's amazing.
Yeah, I bumped into him yesterday actually. Like I was coming towards him, like we were both on like the rented Brighton bikes. And I just saw this bloke like kind of like dressed funny and like just kind of looking at the King Alfred Leisure Centre like roof area, and I was like, the hell is this guy looking at? And before I even like saw Benji's face, I was like,
brilliant. Next question is from Vepa Daredevil, aka Vaco, who is an absolute madhead from Finland. He's crazy. Anyway, his question is, what are the most common errors in the field of parkour coaching?
Not being authentic. Big one. Trying to copy other people. Trying to, like, it takes a long time. Best coaching advice I ever got, which I took like way too, like not too far, but I took it to the extreme, was like coach in the way that you coach. Like, don't try and imitate someone else. I take that quite far in the sense of my values. I'm cautious prescribing my own values to people, but my own values are things like awareness, things like this, which I think, you know, create choices for people. So I think authenticity, to be honest, is like a big one. I think a lot of coaches are sort of imitating things that they've seen, maybe ways that they've been taught.
At least you can resonate with your own values. Like, it might be harder to express someone else's values.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It'll just be like some low resolution diluted.
Yeah, and then you should do lots of quadrupedy for some reason, but it's not quite clear why. But don't question it, because if you put, you know, and then you're ending up in like
is the archetype.
Cognitive dissonance territory, where you're acting in one way and you're believing in something, and like, yeah. So I see a lack of authenticity as that would be my answer.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think. What was the most common error?
What are the most common errors in parkour coaching? Yeah.
It becoming your job
Fuck's sake.
as in, like, from your perspective, like, yeah, I mean, as soon as your job becomes a job, like, and when you're delivering, like, quality content to children and meant to inspire and get people hyped about doing parkour, it's pretty hard to kind of get that message across when
tired.
When you're treating it like a job. And people feel that energy for sure. So I mean, for a lot of people, it's especially if you do end up coaching 5 days a week, all day, it's going to be hard for it to turn into your job. And I don't know, if you can, it's probably best to avoid coaching that much, because it's going to take a pretty, like, robust person to not have it turned into something that is a job, that feels like a job. I mean, it's the same with everything that people can do. Like, too much of anything, too much monotony can just wear you down, I suppose.
I would also say not being humble enough, in the sense of saying, like, giving advice that is, like, way beyond what you're qualified to give, or what you have the knowledge to give.
Absolutely.
Both physically and psychologically. It's like, if you think someone is experiencing something that is worth giving advice on, and you haven't spent 100 hours studying it, then give it, like, be like, cool, you need to go and see someone. Refer. Like, a minimum 100 hours, like, probably way more. Yeah. Like, even to get a sense of what is going on, 100 hours, but probably way more.
Yeah, I say to my students, I don't know.
Yeah.
Very, very often.
Yeah.
Like, and I think they respect me for it. Like, it's weird. Like not knowing something is, I don't know, there's a lot of value there. Huge. Like, because it's not assuming, like, you're an authority in every single, like, just because you're an authority figure doesn't mean, like, in this situation, doesn't mean, like, it's across the board. Like,
you're, like, deconditioning people from this belief that authority is a huge fallacy. Like knowledge is not an authoritative thing. No authority holds knowledge. That's not how it works. It's easy to get into that state where it's like, the person who is in charge of me also knows all the answers to everything, and that just kind of goes unquestioned because people tend to go along with it. But
when it comes to that, it's like, if it's a certain move, for example, it'll be like, I don't know, man. I've never tried that before. We can work on it together. Like, I'm not sure I'll be able to do it, but we can do our best, like, with the time that we've got. Like,
and there's so much value there, because then they see you being honest, humble, and potentially vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's those are traits that you want to be giving to people. And that's
Next one. Next one comes from Geordie Heppel.
Oh, good man.
Who says, another really underrated guy, actually. I've only met him once, but geez, yeah.
It's going to be a joke question, isn't it?
It's actually the opposite. It's quite a serious question. He says, can parkour have a negative effect on mental health?
It's a great question.
Great question.
Let me take a moment. So I think, and I know you don't agree with me, Callum, but I think parkour can be a tremendously nihilistic pursuit, and I'll try and clarify what I mean. Once you understand that everything holds multiple values, it becomes easy to mistake that for feeling that nothing holds any value. That this is purely my opinion. But once I am aware that, let's say, the greater pattern of noticing that the things around me can be used in many ways. I think it becomes possible that we sort of lose a sense of a kind of groundedness that maybe people experience more generally. I could also make a point about anxiety. Most other practices have a much more robust, like, here's what you do when you're training. Here are at least some basics. Go to a gymnastics club. The people there will be doing some stuff. Parkour, it's like, hey, go and do what do you want to do? It's like, well, that's pretty broad. Like, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. It's like, anxiety is disorientation, manifests in a number of different ways, right? I'm pretty sure that's true. Whether it's physical disorientation, whether it's the disorientation of having many choices, these things all seem to be manifest within the same sort of feeling or even physical pattern of anxiety.
I do honestly sometimes feel anxious when I come to a spot or a parkour gym and there is an overwhelming amount of options.
Right. Thank you for saying that. That's a great. Yeah.
I do not have enough body for this play, and that makes me anxious.
This is an interspecies phenomenon. Like, this is very much a thing that too much freedom breeds anxiety. So I think there's a lot, probably even more than this, surely more than this. There are a number of ways in which parkour has the potential to become maladaptive, right? It's like, are we practicing in a way that is furthering our ability to like continue thriving in an environment? It's like, well, if I'm like destroying my body, possibly not. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna say, what are your intentions? I guess. How did he word it again? How did he word the question?
He just said, can parkour have a negative effect on mental health?
Yeah, I think your intentions and your expectations from any practice, whether you're predisposed with those intentions and expectations from wherever, socially or whatever, can have a massive impact on your mental health. I don't know. I don't think you can attribute that to parkour, really. It's got to be some kind of predisposition from something else. I'm not sure. But parkour in itself, I don't know. I don't think you can pin anything on it, really. There is good and bad wherever you look, I suppose. And it's I don't know. I didn't.
No, it's a great point. Like, things are always super complex, and it's never going to be like, oh, if I just don't do parkour, that's gonna. Not that anyone's saying this is the case, but it's my experience with negative. Negative is not a very descriptive word, but with states like anxiety and depression, these things might be manifest in parkour. I might notice them more in parkour, but they're always connected to something deeper.
Like, for example, you might have competitive traits within you where you're comparing yourself to your peers. That might manifest itself in your head through practicing parkour around people. Eliminating parkour from the equation is not going to get rid of that problem. You'll move on to playing golf, for example, and you'll see that demon there as well.
And I would put a caveat in there that even the framing of these demons, these problems, we're all one thing, and so when we have these desires to be competitive, these are not inherently bad things. They're maybe just not being realized. And I really feel that loving awareness is a tremendously powerful force in this strange field of psychology, which we're all experiencing, whether we want to or not. We're very much all in this territory. And the state of loving acceptance of, oh, actually, I do kind of want to like outcompete this person, or like I do want to actually jump a little bit further. And everyone feels this. It's really nothing to be ashamed of. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of people feel this. A lot of people compare. The first step the first possible step, I believe, that if you want to influence the way that you act is not to suppress, not to reject, not to demonize, but to be aware, and I think to be loving as well.
Yeah, I guess understanding where these things come from, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But they come from complex places, I think.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they come from places that are more complex and we have the language to consider. For example, my relationship with the future. But this is another conversation. But I mean, maybe we don't have time to get into this. But
we actually, I mean, it depends on you guys. I mean, we have a few questions.
I don't want to talk too much about certain things.
We just have a few questions left. I had 3 questions from one person, and I'm deciding which one is best. Okay, so shout out to Hector, my boy in York, who's come from the Canary Islands and is absolutely loving parkour in the UK, and is my
Geordie's from the Canary Islands as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sick.
He sometimes sounds like he's from up north.
Yeah. So Hector says, how do you perceive falling from your own perspective and others in the community? I think he's put. I think he's asking this because Hector is, I nickname him the bouncy ball because somehow he manages to ukemi, bail, however you want to call it, out of everything. He's really, really good at it. And it makes him very like bold with his training, but also very kind of relaxed because he knows he can kind of just get out of things.
Look at Dom.
Yeah.
He can just deal with consequences.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's
adaptive.
Like he's not that great at sorting it out. He's not that good at organising his body to find the least destructive thing.
He can just
on
deal
his
with
body.
the consequences. And he is
just
good.
He's very
Good at adapting, but he's also very good at just dealing with the consequences of not adapting.
Yeah. Why put the effort in when you can just take it?
Just take it.
Why be careful and why bother visualizing stuff and tuning your vision and everything when you can just
smash it and
take the hit?
Yeah. I try to frame. I'm not sure if this answers his question, but I try to frame to myself and to people that I work with or people that I'm training with, when someone falls, I will always try and meet that with a smile because I genuinely see it as a positive thing. Within the confines of you're fine. If someone falls and they've broken their face up and they've lost a couple of teeth, they'll be like, all right, well, this is a different situation. But if someone has fallen and they've reorganized their body, this is new information. This is a step towards boldness. This is a step towards, I can actually put myself in a wider range of situations than I first thought and still be fine. We can deal with risk by reducing the probability of falling, but we can also deal with risk by mitigating the consequences by becoming more adaptive. And these are two very different things, very, very different. And it sounds like Hector's very good at least, and I've seen his movements, so I know that he's very good at the former as well. He's very good at dealing with risk. He's very technical, very precise.
I'm not sure if I have.
Super skill. But if he's very good at dealing with the consequences, with this adaptive perspective, then that's a wonderful thing, and it's something that's very difficult to teach, but I believe it can be taught, but I think it's something very specific to teach. And I'll give a quick anecdote. I was training with a friend who's a dancer, who's not doing a lot of parkour, but has a very, very broad background in ballet and contemporary dance, and he was trying to learn lazy vaults and miss his hand, classic, and he put himself in a position of his body that I would have fallen over 100%, but he was able to reorientate himself because he's really good at reorientating himself. Possibly that's to do with the center of mass. That's a slightly different conversation, but So that's something that can be learnt, but I think it's a little bit difficult to teach.
Do you think people like Amos are leading the charge here?
I was about to say
it's a good way to go. I think there's this perspective. I think there's also maybe another slightly different perspective on the adaptability thing. But I think you could go down that route, and you're going to go very far. So yeah, big up to Amos for sure.
I actually gave him a shout out in the most recent Star video.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've not seen it.
Wasn't even endorsed either.
Yeah. A little bit.
Little bit. No. Vinny Fiacco from Denver messaged me afterwards, saying like, how much did Amos pay you for that endorsement?
But and this is a great point as well, relating to what I was saying earlier, and I wish I made this point then. Amos is someone who's also made a really good online course, and it's not that expensive.
He has.
It's $100 or something like this. It's essentially nothing for the amount of value that's there, the amount of coaching material. There's like 8 hours of coaching. Like I can't remember. There's a lot there.
Quite funny as well, from what I've
It's
seen.
very funny, very well filmed. It's I would love to make a product that good. So I can't recommend it enough as something to buy, as something to aspire to as a product, and as learning material. So yeah, huge shout out to Amos.
Yeah, Parkour Ukemi, Amos Rendell.
Yeah.
Anyone that doesn't know.
.net.
It's not a paid endorsement. It's not paid at all.
But it could be. If he wants to send us money, then
But yeah, of course,
send us some Bitcoin.
the option's there, Amos, if you want to reach out.
He's a funky dude.
He's a funky dude. He in 2015 he came on the Helms Deeper tour, or whatever they called it, the
Myrmidons.
Myrmidons project that they took like 2.5 years to actually release. Amos was wearing like the same holy trousers,
You know what?
throughout the whole time,
Yeah.
and through the hole you could see the same underpants as well. Through the whole trip.
I met him in Osaka, of all places.
No
in
way.
Like 2013.
Japan.
Yeah. I was just like going to train with the local guys, and I was like, "You're not Japanese."
It's like,
Just Cam's like running up into the spot.
Hey, Flynn, right?
Yeah, just like knows like my date of birth and my star sign.
Hey, what's up? Sorry.
Okay, well, thanks to Hector for that one. We've got two questions left. The first is highly inappropriate. It's from Tom Taylor, who says he says calculate. I can't do it.
Please, come on, please, you can do it.
Movement power says calculate the average penis length. Mean is fine of all three of you.
Oh, fair.
The average.
So he said calculate the average penis length, and then in brackets mean is fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
That depends. Like if there is an iguana among us, or if there is a micro penis among us.
Yeah.
I feel like we're all fairly average. I definitely don't have a micro penis. I'm just saying. I definitely don't.
It's fine if you do, mate. It's fine if you do.
Super average.
We're all average.
So average.
Yeah.
Unbelievably average.
So yeah, none of us have a micro penis. None. No way. No sorry. Average here.
Average Joe.
Nothing.
Looking at you.
Nothing to hide.
Just 3 average people.
Yeah. I'm especially average.
You're-
I'm exceptionally average.
I mean,
Boldly average. So yeah, hope that answered your question, Tom.
thanks, Tom.
He's very into metrics though, so I'm sure I'll be disappointed, but never mind.
It's all about the quality, Tom. It's not always about the quantity.
Okay, and the very last question on this journey of questions. This is from Sarah Moa, who says, how do you explain how parkour feels and moves to a blind person?
That's such a Sarah question.
It is, isn't it? It's got you thinking though, hasn't it?
God damn it, Sarah. It feels pretty rad. Pretty rad. I don't know.
No, that's a wonderful question. I'd love to give an equally wonderful answer. Let's take a moment.
I just feel obliged to fill the silence for anyone that might think that the podcast is buffering. We are just thinking, I promise.
Sometimes it feels like knowing the rules to a game that and playing the game flawlessly. So sometimes, like when I felt that I've been moving with a very high level of competence and with a very low level of risk, where movements become very sort of standardized, and I feel like my movement is like input cat pass and it's very consistent. Then it feels like I'm moving within a game, and I know the rules of the game, and I'm able to play the game very well, and so it feels safe, but it also feels sort of exhilarating, sort of freeing.
Yeah, I'm stumped with that question. God damn it, Sarah.
I think swinging laches is like the most sensation filled type of movement for me, because it's like there's not that much there's so much space for sensation, and it feels like being in a different physics than the one that we normally occupy.
Normally the sensation for me is just my hands hurt.
When you're doing lashes.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. There are more than that, but my brain seems to focus very heavily on that.
When it's so effortless, when you catch the center points, it feels like hitting water, like jumping down, and it feels like just hitting into like a different quality. Like is in the sense of when you jump into water, you move in a different way. This is a very different physics that you're occupying.
Yeah.
And that feels very cool.
That's nice, man.
You with them analogies. that water analogy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Do you think that's across the board with parkour, not only laches or?
I think when you're very competent, or at least when you're competent with parkour, when you're using leverage appropriately, which is what I would, in a sense, call technique. When you're using leverage appropriately, you're creating maximum ease within a movement.
Yeah.
Because leverage is a force multiplier. If you want to put less effort into things, use more leverage.
Yeah.
When you're using leverage appropriately, then I think the movement becomes very easy, and that's the state that you want. So when we say a culture of effort, I think it's sort of misleading. People say parkour is a culture of effort. It's like, well, maybe we want a culture of effortlessness. I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, so I think when the technique is working, the leverage is there. It feels very very effortless, and then in this sense, it's like a kind of like doing big strides or something. It's just like input. It's like, and it feels not difficult.
Yeah.
I think for me, in the similar answer to Howard asked me in the last podcast, like, why do you love parkour, sort of thing. And for me, a word that sticks out in my mind is fiction. Like, as in, it feels a bit fictitious when you are doing parkour when you're on your absolute, the top of your game. It almost feels like a story that you're the main character and you're like the superhero, you know? It feels kind of fictitious, which is like, I don't know, it's everything, isn't it? Because we learn and grow up in stories, but they're always, the characters are always outside of this, like our reality. Whereas when I do parkour, it feels like I'm kind of, like I am the character.
Yeah, you're bigger than the thing that you're trying to be.
It's funny because I've always connected parkour to reality. To me, parkour is like is a gateway to the real world, because you get all this feedback, you get all this error correction. So in that sense, when I feel I would give almost the other side of that as my answer to that question. It's like, it feels like you can meet yourself, you can meet I can have all the ideas in the world. I can René Descartes and I can think the world away, but then when I actually get into action, it's like, things are very different. And you don't know that until you go there, and that's kind of what I was also referring to with the improvisation. You meet different aspects of reality, and I think that's something that no one can ever take that away from you.
No.
And it's something that not everyone meets, unfortunately. I think that people live their whole lives without touching this, but I think we want to be touching this.
On that note, I think we'll round up there, boys.
Wonderful.
All right.
That went really quick.
Yeah.
3 hours.
Yeah. Still got loads of snacks left.
Yeah, loads of snacks.
I don't know what to say. I think that is everything my 15-year-old self could have wanted. That was brilliant. So
Everything Brian the Butler wanted.
He knows.
Are the Brian the Butler YouTube videos still on YouTube?
Yeah. I mean,
really?
I took some of them are like hidden because they're cringy as fuck.
Jokes. I remember me and Sasha used to watch some of them, and part of us were kind of laughing at them, but there was like one where you reviewed Summer Video, and this is like 2010, so 11 years ago. You did one that was like reviewing Summer Video, and you were psyched about it, and I was like, oh, that's so sick, and I was really happy about it. Like there was someone like up north that was well psyched about my video, enough to make his own video talking about it. And I know you were making, as far as I know, your videos were like the first like Giles Compiles thing. You're probably annoyed because people are going to go back and look for those videos, and the first thing you're going to do before you put this podcast live is go and put those videos on unlisted so people can't see them. But yeah, I think that was great.
Thank you, man. That's I think that's the tip of the iceberg, if I'm honest. Like that, it's hard to. Yeah, man, it's hard to formulate, really. Like it's remarkable the impact people can have on other people in parkour. I think you can look into it a bit, you can look into it further, and then there's always further, my Bind the Butler project is the tip of the iceberg, really. Like, I've put hundreds of videos out on that, and
yeah. What did it mean, Bind the Butler? Like, was there any? I wanted to ask you for years. Where did that come from?
It's stupid. It's so stupid. Like me and my friend George. Shout out to George Holden. I used to go around to his house and we used to play this old Flash game called Boxhead, and it was like a kind of shoot 'em up, bullet hell style game. And there's different characters, and they were all based on like famous protagonists. And there was one that was like in a suit and a tie. That was meant to be Bond, right? James Bond. But he was called Bind, so they just replaced the O.
Bind the butler.
So and it wasn't even a butler; it was meant to be Bond. Like Bond's not a butler, but because of his like attire, I always used to play as him. And what was funny is that in the house with George, we kind of pretend that like it's so stupid, like. He just used to say, like, he used to like click his fingers and be like, Bind, go and get me like a packet of crisps or something. I'd be like, yes, sir. It's fucking weird, man. Yeah.
I always imagine, like, I don't know why, like the butler was bound, like bind the butler as in like bound him with this unbreakable twine or like rope. Like he's bound in rope. And just, I don't know why anyone would want to tie up this poor butler.
Yeah.
Like Alfred.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's just one of those things. Like it stuck, and then I just carried on. And I think that I kind of reframed it in my mind as like butler, as in I'm serving. So what I tried to do is, my the picture is a hand like serving you. So it's like serving.
It's like serving.
So it's like serving. So it's like serving you content, right?
Right.
And yeah, people. I'll. It sounds so. It's how on earth can I say this without sounding hipster as fuck? But like, I actually did do a lot of things before other people. Like, for example, the sort of flow show type stuff.
Yeah.
I swear, like even Tim Sheaf commented on one of my videos of me like doing the roundup of the year, and like then there's Giles and stuff. And I actually, Flynn, this is one for you. I actually did do narration videos in 2018.
Yeah.
I think, but no, there's a lot of strange and cringy stuff on there, but there's some good stuff. I'm really proud of some of the stuff I put on there, and I tried to make some parkour videos that had an emotional element to them as well, because that's not too common.
I mean, I think that's like savagely like the part that me and Sasha were kind of laughing at, like, but it's stupid because like it's just coming from insecurity, because like this guy's like talking and like being emotional and vulnerable and stuff, when it's just like me and Sasha were just kind of like, huh, lame, just like, but it's just kind of wasn't. Like when you look at it, it's something that is really good. Like and those videos, the videos that you're doing, Tom Taylor actually shared with me after he shared one of your IGTV videos. Like he was doing stuff like that as well, but he ended up putting it on private. I'm not sure why. Maybe because he felt like he was making himself too vulnerable. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's something there. There's something there. I think people can take value from that in a different way than they can just the movement, because it's hard to read the movement and the intention and the thoughts behind it. Yeah.
That's a huge area to explore.
Yeah. Vulnerability, it's very interesting. And I think also maybe not what we think it is. Hashtag vulnerability versus vulnerability to an end. Like I'm going to put myself out here. For example, what you're doing is like, right now, it's like you're making yourself very vulnerable, whether you feel like that or not. In a sense, you're opening yourself up to critique. You're doing something sincere. You're opening yourself up to critique. But you're doing this for a purpose. You're not doing this to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of people going like, hashtag Vulnerable Tuesday.
Oh.
It's like,
Oh dear.
I don't know. Yeah. I think this kind of thing that you're doing, Sam, is the sort of expression of vulnerability that I see as being very sincere, because it's vulnerability in the service of something, rather than just for its own sake. And there's so much value to even within conversation, just like noticing what you feel. Like if I'm considering saying something and I'm like, my heart rate is going up, it's like me expressing that is like the thing that is making my heart rate increase, is going to be an expression of vulnerability, because I'm exposing how I feel. Something makes me feel like this, I then say that, I'm therefore exposing how I feel, and that's very scary. It's very vulnerable, but it's also the force that will move things in the direction that you want them to go. And yeah, it's like try being in a relationship without being able to like be vulnerable. It's like, well, it's gonna be
Good luck.
Yeah. So yeah, right on. I think this kind of thing is great, and I'm sure it was more scary the first few podcasts for you, and I imagine it's not so hard now, even though maybe those same feelings are there, but it's like you're more able to deal with them. Is that the case?
Nah, he was already on top of it with buying the butler. Bro.
But it's also a great point.
You're talking to a seasoned hero here.
It's a great point as well. Like I can, and what you said there puts this into context as well. It's like I didn't know any of that.
I think the difference with how I feel now, I just don't give a fuck, man. Like I actually, it's so oversaid, but I actually feel within the last year I've turned a corner, and like I feel confident in what I have to say. I think it's
I think that confidence comes from me personally, like as I've become more understanding of people and their behaviors and stuff, like I'm more accepting of like what makes these behaviors and moods or whatever, like has kind of given me a weird confidence. But that's only assuming that other people would have that same understanding towards me, and like certain levels of me making myself vulnerable, and whether that's me making mistakes or anything. But I don't know, it's hard because obviously other people like have different levels of that understanding of people, and like we're all shit, we're all struggling, like
I think this is a problem that I see with I don't really know how to describe it, but like parts of the London parkour culture makes it really difficult to be vulnerable, makes it really difficult to like express anything sincere unless it's like within a maybe very specific bound, like at the risk of like, you know, like you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the best way is to express it. Maybe I feel like I'm putting myself in that space, but to know that anytime you take a step outside of the bounds of what you feel is acceptable, you're going to have the piss taken out of you. Like someone's going to be like, that was shit, you know, if you try something in full.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this is a very detrimental force. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like there are some situations where you shouldn't be vulnerable. Someone's chasing you with an axe. Like this is not the time to, like, if you're physically not safe, or perhaps if you're emotionally not safe, if you don't feel like you're going to be heard, if you know that if that's not the case within a relationship, probably that's not the time to be vulnerable. Like maybe it's smart to hold back in some sense, to have those boundaries. But I think if your culture is enforcing those boundaries on people, then you're limiting what people can do, and that's like borderline oppressive, right? It's like we want to be going in the other direction. We want, like, I don't know, flipping Fantasthenics, King Fantasy. I mean, no one can touch him, right? Like he's doing his own thing, but Like I think we want to see more people who are just like, I'm flipping doing this. Like this is what I'm doing. He's like 55, so he super doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, I love him.
But I think there's a huge range of people who, I don't know. I feel like parkour could be more, I don't know, more explorative somehow.
I think those guys definitely, like, in their own clique, when shit hits the fan, like when stuff, like, they're mature enough now to like take things seriously when they need to be, and call shit out that is too like OTT.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why I said OTT. It's the same amount of syllables.
So over the top.
No, it's over.
No, it's one less.
Top. One less. Yeah, I saved time, but then ruined it by everything that followed. Sorry, everyone.
Well, I mean, something that is involved here, which is interesting as well, and massive shout out to the London community. Like I haven't spent nearly enough time with them, and I'm sure they're all very interesting individuals. But they've had tragedies as well. Like I think that it's been interesting for me to see how, from a completely outside perspective, like they don't know who I am, like following their stories and stuff. It's interesting to see how they've dealt with some tragedies that have happened, like in the parkour community.
You're speaking about Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, it must be fucking mental. Yeah. But yeah, like a group of lads that are so. That must have been, for a group of lads that are so like boisterous and kind of like what you'd imagine to be like the stark opposite of like vulnerability and like being open and stuff. That probably opened up a lot.
Yeah, they've been dealing with it, I think, very admirably. With Johnny's death. Like I know Tom in particular, Mackie took it, I think, very well. Like he's been very affected by it. Like sharing a lot, and I mean I don't know. I don't know anything about this. I don't have a sophisticated perspective on how one might deal with these things, but
sure.
But yeah, definitely it's like opened up, I think, some stuff there.
Yeah, respect to them lot.
Yeah, huge love to those guys.
But it'd be interesting. It would be interesting to. I don't really want to step too far here because I'm not really friends with them. I'm not in their community. I'm not kind of stepping out of line. But it would be interesting to know, how they've dealt with this, how they've come to terms with this, and what keeps them kind of going as a group and as a motivated group, and what helps them. Like I love.
Interesting to know from their perspective to how it's changed the group's dynamic and how as the dynamic in the terms of them, like how they're. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, it must hit pretty hard to be a group of friends, and then one thing that can happen that can make you realize like that your tight group of friends that you fuck around with and take the piss out of 24/7, one of them can just go. That must change things quite a bit, and yeah.
I think we've been very lucky, and I don't know if it can be attributed to anything but luck that we haven't experienced more situations like this.
Yeah,
Because obviously there was David recently, David Wolf.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
And again, like similar to Johnny, and like such a bright. I'd never met David, but he just seemed like such a bright spark.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it is weird. Like, I hope we're not gonna become like the climbing community.
Yeah, where it's just-
Where, I mean, God forbid the wingsuiting community. We're far from that, but yeah, the climbing community where it's just like we've all got friends that have passed away, and yeah, makes you think about the risks you deal with and the consequences that you play with and stuff.
Yeah, which we should be, and what incentives are driving us towards these things as well. Like,
it makes it real, and you need to keep it real.
keep it real.
You need
True
to
that.
you need to be
real.
your decisions need to be based on reality rather than any
Well,
extrinsic gain.
I disagree in a sense. I think our decisions need to be based on our highest values. But what our highest values are is not obvious.
Right.
And my highest value is definitely not, can I perform to the Instagram algorithm?
Right.
You know, can I make shocking content?
Yeah.
That I can say for sure. Perhaps it's a step along the path. Perhaps it's something that I want to do
Yeah.
that necessitates this kind of behavior. But I think without putting these things into question, we are at risk of just floating and being pulled in by whatever force has the strongest pull,
Yeah.
strongest gravity. And yeah, there's a huge incentive, there's a huge reward value. When I say incentive, I mean reward value for this kind of like Insta activity stuff. But the point there that I wanted to make was that like what are you doing? You know, what is your highest value? Like what do you care about? What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave? What do you care about? What makes you cry every time you think about it? You know, put yourself in that direction. Put yourself in the direction that will get you the furthest. Why not?
Legacy is a good one. Legacy is a good one to think about. And it can be weird because it can feel kind of vain, but also like it can give you like a great sense of meaning. Thinking, what are you going to be remembered for? What is going to be your mark on? I mean, you can limit it to the parkour community if you want, but by all means, go further.
I think I
or it can just be your family.
I can't recommend enough, although I've forgotten the name. But maybe Sam, you can add it in the show notes. But I listened to this wonderful podcast with a woman who was a dancer and sort of somatic therapist, a sort of like body mind therapist. Let's say, I was working a lot with sort of trauma and all this. But I think she's in her 60s now, so she's like had a whole life of the stuff that we're sort of starting to talk about. Someone very, very mature in this sense, and she's like, I really started life with this intention of influencing. I want to create this positive benefit for like, I want to save the world, like this kind of thing. And she said now she's like, that's a little bit too broad.
Right.
It's okay to just narrow that down to like 10 people.
Yeah.
If you can leave a positive impact for 10 people, you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, it can be a more acute positive impact as well.
And this also doesn't necessarily count for the resonance of these things. It's like we don't know the consequences, the resonant outward consequences of our actions, right? It's like we don't know I just think that there are so many unknowns in the way that information translates and how things might resonate outwardly, and I mean that in terms of both like ideas, but also in terms of feeling. There's very few people now that you maybe would run into, and you just go like the presence of someone. I mean, presence itself is something quite interesting. But again, I'm not sure if I want to speak about these things right now. I'm not sure if I can do it with such clarity. But.
Should we close it there, boys?
Yeah.
Right.
That was Sorry, say that again.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry to you.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
Very British.
The most British sentence. you've
Thank
ever
you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank
I'm
you
sorry.
for your time. I'm sorry, by the way. I'm sorry.
Yeah, listeners, thank you for coming on that journey. That was 3 hours.
Jesus.
More, definitely more.
A little bit more, yeah, a little bit more. So thank you if you got this far.
I thought we were on like 4.
I want to get to that Duncan Trussell and Joe Rogan link.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this, then please, I have more big plans for more big episodes. So click follow if you're on Spotify, click subscribe if you're on YouTube. I don't know what else to say really. Go and make sure you're up to date with stuff that Flynn's doing, the stuff that Callum's doing. You can check out Bind the Butler if you really wish. You can see my adolescent vulnerability.
Flynn Tricks, if anyone wants an old
Flynn Tricks.
Flynn Tricks is my old YouTube channel. If anyone wants to.
What can mine be?
Columpy
I'd say American Parkour documentary, but that's just kind of me.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, that's vulnerable.
It is very funny.
It's just me being an arse. I don't know.
But yeah, thank you, boys. I really enjoyed that, and I think there was some really important stuff in there. So I'm glad I managed to glean that from you with a few beers. So. Till next time, thank you very much. Hopefully we can chat again, and I'm sure I'll see you in York when you actually get up here, like all the other Southerners who can't be asked.
Up north? No. Can't you come down here?
I'm super keen.
I've been down several times.
I'm joking.
No, it's cool. Cool. All right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Callum. Thank you, Flynn. Much love to everyone.
Love you, Sam.
Sweet.
Goodbye.
Cheers, Sam. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone.
Wow. Oh my God. Have you recorded all that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Please,
stop
dear
after.
God,
Dear God, say.
Stop after 30 seconds.